start the recording.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me pull up what I need.
Okay, that's okay. It's going to take a little minute for it to start.
Okay.
All right, you can start whenever you are ready, Mayor Blakespear.
Okay, thank you. Hold on, I'm not quite ready.
Okay.
I am looking for the Overdose Awareness Proclamation.
Okay, let me get that.
If you could
I'm forwarding it to you right now.
Okay, thank you. I know I signed it at City Hall, but it was not complete at that time.
I just forwarded you the email from Anne Marie.
Okay, thank you. Great. Okay, I am now ready. Thank you for waiting. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the regular City Council meeting on Wednesday, August 25th, 2021, and it's 6 p.m. May we please have a roll call?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Hensy?
Here.
Councilmember Lyons?
Here.
Councilmember Mosca?
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Kranz?
Yep.
And Mayor Blakespear.
Here.
Record will show that all members of the City Council are present this evening.
Okay, thank you. And I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next we have a proclamation, and I see Lisa Nava here is here to accept it, and I'll read the proclamation, Lisa, and then you will be invited to say a few words if you would like to, but if you don't want to, that's okay too.
Thank you.
So this is a proclamation from the City of Encinitas. Whereas the City of Encinitas does affirm and acknowledge the harm and hardship caused by drug overdose. And whereas the opioid epidemic has claimed 93,000 lives nationwide in 2020, which represents a 30% increase. And whereas synthetic opioids, such as fentanyl, are deadly analogs, poisoning the drug supply. And whereas we recognize the purpose of International Overdose Awareness Day as remembering loved ones lost to overdose and ending the stigma of drug-related deaths. And whereas we resolve to play our part in reducing the toll of overdose in our community, which claimed the lives of 461 people in San Diego County in 2020, together with countless more affected forever. And whereas we recognize harm reduction methods such as overdose reversal drugs, Narcan, and naloxone as critical tools to help those affected by substance abuse disorder. And whereas we affirm that the people affected by overdose are our sons and daughters, our mothers and fathers, our brothers and sisters, and they are deserving of love, compassion, and support. Therefore, I, Catherine Blakespear, Mayor of the City of Encinitas, and the City Council do hereby proclaim August 31, 2021 as International Overdose Awareness Day in the City of Encinitas. And with that, I'd like to symbolically hand you a proclamation.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Symbolically take it. Would you like to say anything?
I would like to just say a huge thank you to you personally, Catherine Blakespear, Mayor Blakespear, for listening, for always being willing to find a way to act. I also like to commend the City Council for having the fortitude to actually talk about overdose and how it affects our community. As many know, I have a personal story here, and I come to this work very reluctantly. However, I will accept this proclamation on behalf of over 20 people that I know in our own community who have lost someone to overdose. On top of that, I also want to recognize all those that are in recovery right now and dealing with addiction, whether it's themselves or someone in their family, and the chaos that comes with it. I'd like to just say this is a first step, and I really appreciate it. And on behalf of all those that are struggling and are confused right at this moment, I accept this proclamation, and I thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Lisa. We really appreciate your elevation of this issue and creation of the opportunity for us to talk about it publicly. And all of our hearts go out to you for the suffering that you have experienced.
I really appreciate that, and thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next we have our public comments.
Yes, Mayor, we do have several. I just remind our speakers for oral communications, this is for items that are not listed on the agenda. If I call your name and you actually wanted to speak on an agenda item, just please let me know. You will have 3 minutes. Our first speaker is Donna Westbrook.
There's a phone number I'll try unmuting, but I don't see your name on here.
Can't tell who the phone number is. It doesn't look like they're connected.
No, there's no way of knowing.
So we'll move to our next speaker, Scott French. I do not see Scott French present. Our next speaker is Cindy Cremona. You can start when ready. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Kathy. Mayor Blakespear, my comments and question are directed to you this evening. As a Senate candidate for the 2022 midterms, we have yet to hear your position on the controversial bills SB 9 and SB 10. SB 9, if signed into law, would allow 6 units without public input where one single family home now stands. It ends single family zoning statewide, overriding city powers. This bill would be CEQA exempt and does not require affordable units to be built. SB 10 would add 10 units of housing next to single family lots with no public input, all done by right and with no affordable housing requirements. It applies even to high fire zones and currently protected HOA communities. SB 10 would override our citizen-initiated Prop A, passed by Encinitas residents in 2013, giving us a voice in how our city's growth is managed. In June of this year, the city took Prop A to court to overturn our voting rights, and we are currently awaiting the judge's decision. SB 9 and SB 10 are not supported by the Sierra Club or the LA City Council, which voted officially to oppose both bills. Tony Atkins claims SB 9 is primarily written for homeowners. In actuality, it's written for large investors, BlackRock-like entities, rental giants, and pension funds, not for homeowners. SB 10 just made it to the California Senate and could be voted on as early as this week. Mayor Blakespear, I believe the time is now to come clean and let your constituents know, as well as our neighbors to the north and in Orange County, where do you stand on SB 9 and SB 10? If you were elected as a state senator, would you vote yes to end single-family zoning or no? Thank you.
Next speaker who is present.
Mayor Blakespear, before we get to the next speaker, I do want to ask that we bring our legislative program back to the council for consideration, because I did send a letter in opposition to SBs 9 and 10, and I was a little disappointed given how on point it was regarding our legislative program that it wasn't a opposition letter from the full council. So I'd like to know more about how we are going to address issues related to local control when it comes to determining how to pursue either support or opposition letters for various legislation.
Okay.
The next speaker present is Diane Grace.
Good evening, Mayor Blakespear and City Council members. My name is Diane Grace, and I come here tonight before you as a parent, grandparent, and one who has also served on numerous parent group boards. I have appreciated the council's leadership in recognizing the health risk of secondhand smoke and creating Encinitas' smoke-free public spaces ordinance. For acknowledging that the enticement of flavored tobacco products is the driver behind teen tobacco use, particularly in vaping products. The city's ban of flavored tobacco products was a significant contribution to good public health for all. Parents and public health educators received 3 important press releases this month from national leading organizations that strive to protect Americans against smoking and vaping. The first came from Action on Smoking and Health, known as ASH, which was founded in 1967. ASH is America's oldest anti-tobacco organization dedicated to a world with 0 tobacco deaths. ASH announced that the production and marketing of tobacco products is a violation of the human right to health, and governments have a duty to stop the tobacco industry. The second press release came from the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, who have fought tobacco companies in the U.S. and around the world for 25 years. They scolded Philip Morris and other tobacco companies for running a barrage of new ads. Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids countered the ads and announced that tobacco company business models are built on addiction, disease, and death. The third press release came from Parents Against Vaping and E-Cigarettes, a national advocacy and education organization powered by parents. They announced their new project is Back to School, Not Back to Juul, shining their light on the continued effort to hook kids through flavored vaping products. I appreciate these youth-focused organizations. Perhaps Encinitas could join them by eliminating flavored marijuana products as well as tobacco products. Thank you.
Next speaker is Scott French.
Hello. I think I may have signed into the wrong or signed up for the wrong conversation here.
Okay.
I was initially going to be talking, I wanted to talk about affordable housing.
You were signed up for oral communications, and those are items that are not listed on the agenda. And then you're also listed for the appeal, which is item 10A.
So item 10A is what I wanted to, is what we want.
Well, you signed up for item 10A, that's the appeal. That's for the Vulcan project.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about the Vulcan project.
Okay, I'll call you during that item. Thank you for letting me know.
Okay, sorry about that, guys.
That's okay. Next speaker is Peggy Walker. I don't see Peggy. Next speaker is Nancy Perry Sheridan. Next speaker is Mark Wilcox.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and City Council members. As a father, grandfather, and concerned citizen, I have always followed the news regarding public health developments with its challenges and successes, and the role of cities to protect public health. I see that on agenda item 8B that the city revisits its municipal code language annually regarding conflict of interest by city council members and staff. At the Planning Commission meeting in June regarding the implementation of Measure H, I expressed my concern regarding the need for very clear language in the city's municipal code regarding the conflict of interest for city council members and staff and marijuana business applicants. I mentioned it then because media outlets were commenting on the influential voice of money from cannabis capitalists taking precedence over the voice of the people in the rural and backcountry areas of our county. I am mentioning it now because there is a phenomenon in the city of San Diego that we have noted that perhaps is true for all business applications, but seems to be particularly true for marijuana business applications. As city staff work with marijuana applicants, they seem to own their applicants' success and become very protective of them, losing the perspective that the public deserves: equal advocacy. It continues to be my hope and the hope of the public that we will have as much input into the marijuana application process and vetting process as HDL consultants, who are not highly regarded in the public health world. Thank you for this opportunity to express my concerns as well as the concerns from our community. Thanks.
Next speaker is Elena Thompson.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, good evening. I wanted to simply request that the informational item 11A, which seems like a priority item above and beyond all others, seeing as it's the city's largest capital infrastructure project and improving our 101 corridor, the streetscape update, that could go before item 10A. Just a suggestion so we don't all have to stay up late waiting for exciting news. Thank you.
All right, and then Karen, can you unmute the phone number? Whoever is the number with the last 3 digits, 741, could you just give me your name?
Catherine Brown.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. I just want to make sure I don't miss you.
No.
Okay, great. Just double checking to make sure we got all of our speakers. Nobody else joined. That concludes oral communications.
Okay, thank you very much to the people who called in and participated. Just to mention the meeting agenda. So, we are having Leucadia Streetscape updates monthly, and they are informational items that will take place at the end of the meeting. We have an appeal with more than 14 public comments. So that's the main item on our agenda, and we'll take that before the informational items. But I just wanted to recognize Elena's question and let her know to expect that at the end of the meeting, and also monthly updates on this, as it is our largest capital project, infrastructure project. So with that, we will move to consent. We did not have a closed session today. Are there any changes?
No changes to the posted agenda. And then for the consent calendar, speakers are present and in the queue for item 8F.
Okay, I would entertain a motion on the balance.
So moved.
I'll second.
Councilmember Hensy,
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosca,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Crayons,
Yes.
Mayor Blake Spear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. That takes us to item 8F. And do you want to hear speakers or?
Yes, please.
Okay, our first speaker on 8F is Rob Fleener.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Mayor Blake Spear and council members, as a longtime resident of Leucadia and a member of Now Leucadia, we thank you for recognizing the many issues affecting our corridor and for trying to come up with solutions. We ask that you rethink, placing a pedestrian path on the east side of Vulcan. The east side is unsafe for bikers and pedestrians, many of whom are school children on their way to and from Paul Eckie Central School. There are two main safety issues with placing the path on the east side. One, If you're heading north, your back is to traffic with only a painted line between you and the cars. 2, there are at least 50 driveways on the east side of Vulcan between Leucadia Boulevard and La Costa Avenue. The majority of these 50-plus drives are for multi-unit apartment complexes with many cars in and out day and night. We ask that you move the path to the west side of Vulcan, west of the parked cars, and east of the rail tracks. This would give protection to bikers and pedestrians from two-way moving traffic. This could be accomplished by changing the parking configuration from nose-in to either parallel or diagonal. This would give room for a safe and protected path. We understand your east side path is meant as an interim solution, but we all know how long these interims can last. Let's at least make it a safe interim solution. Given the safety issues with an east side path, and in order to help meet the city's climate action goals, we're asking that you prioritize safe mobility for all community residents. Parking for private apartment owners should not be driving this agenda. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Our next speaker is Elena Thompson.
Yes, hi. Thank you for addressing traffic calming and mobility on Vulcan. I haven't had a chance to dig deep into the report, but I just got back from vacation, and I want to say that one thing I'd like to see as part of any improvement of Vulcan is the removal of the over 100 new metal poles that have recently been placed on the Vulcan right-of-way where the private parking is for apartment owners. There's sign after sign, pole after pole, plus tire stops littering the entire Vulcan rail area. And this is where I live. It's so blighted. It was blighted before this. And I don't know if someone could answer where these hundreds of poles have come from that say danger, no dumping, no parking. It's unsightly. So I would invite the entire council and staff to please drive from La Costa down to Leucadia Boulevard and eyeball what has taken place here and act quickly to remove these poles. Thank you for your traffic calming initiative.
The final speaker is James Gross, who is not present. That concludes speakers.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kranz.
Yes, thank you. This is a re-engineered, not changed, but a little more formal drawings of an item that was discussed, I believe, back in May. And I opposed and continue to oppose it for the reasons that Rob Fleener spelled out so eloquently. She's absolutely right. This is not in the best interests of the residents in the vicinity of Vulcan Avenue. So I will continue to oppose the shifting of the traffic lanes to the west and the painting of a pedestrian path, which will be dodging all sorts of obstructions. But that said, I do support the crosswalks. And so my request would be that these issues be bifurcated so I could support that. I also want to take this opportunity to ask that as part of the crosswalk planning that we look at adding a crosswalk. And I have put together this little Google Maps drawing here, and I would ask staff, how was it that it was determined that a crosswalk would go at Sanford and Andrew? The stretch of Vulcan Avenue between Leucadia Boulevard and La Costa Avenue is 1.1 mile. 0.6 miles is to the south of Sanford, and a half a mile is to the north of Sanford. Sanford obviously is a logical place for a crosswalk because Leucadia Oaks Park is there, and Andrew gets a lot of activity, and I certainly understand the benefits of having a crosswalk there. However, I don't understand why Glaucus was left out of that. Glaucus is a very busy street. I've drawn in a green line that kind of shows the potential loop. There are a lot of residents further east of Vulcan who walk and end up on Glaucus Street in order to get down to Highway 101. Some of them continue to Leucadia Boulevard, but certainly a significant number of people use Glaucus. Jason Street and Sanford doesn't even go through, but the park is there, so that's important. But Hillcrest could theoretically support a crosswalk, but in the end, if you're going to put crosswalks on Vulcan, I do think that there should be one at Glaucus. So I would ask staff, what criterion did you use to establish where the crosswalks would be?
Good evening, Mayor, council members, members of public. Yes, thank you, Councilmember Krantz. Yes, when we evaluated the road for potential vertical elements, usually the factors that we check, obviously, as you mentioned, is the level of activity, the level of pedestrian activity that we have, the physical feasibility, if there is any kind of a pedestrian facility at both sides of the intersection, some sort of a receiving end for our potential raised crosswalks, and speed obviously is the main factor. We consider where is the most recent stop in traffic, what kind of acceleration we're expecting, how do we expect the speed pattern to be, a speed profile to be along the corridor. Now, all these being said, I'm not saying these locations are perfect, and Glaucus is not a good candidate. We didn't want to obviously, add 10 different raised crossings. We decided to pick 3 at locations where we felt like, we could benefit the most from these vertical elements. Now, that said, following council's direction, we are in process of hiring a consultant to reevaluate traffic calming and the potential cut-through traffic on Vulcan and the vicinity to come up with additional solutions and additional potential improvements for Vulcan. This potential study will take around 2 to 3 months. We have some good scopes that we received. We have a potential consultant candidate that can start very soon. These goals, I did listen to the public comments, and I did receive all those emails. These improvements, as we talked last time at the council meeting, these are proposed tonight. These are traffic calming and for the purpose of slowing speed at Vulcan, but these are the ones that we thought are implementable very quickly for all these other improvements that we have currently in progress. As you know, the streetscape phases we have in progress along 101. We wanted to do something very quickly. We wanted to implement something that we think we can benefit from. We do understand the desire of the community to have this space on the west side. Again, it's not impossible. We did talk about this last time, but designing that would require, as you know, significant resources. It would require a lot of design elements to be considered. There will be engineering challenges. There will be permitting requirements. As you know, we would have to modify the current temporary parking that we have over there that was completed. A lot of time and energy and effort went into that. Additionally, as I said, we would need to develop an engineering estimate for that. We don't know how much that westerly walkway would cost. The current plan that you have has been designed. There is a cost estimate for it. The price is reasonable. We can implement that with our existing budget and with our current capacity. That the westerly can be looked at, can be designed. We can overcome those engineering challenges, and we can go through those permitting requirements. But our goal, as said, at the moment was to implement something very quickly in advance of all the improvements that are coming to 101. If there are any follow-up questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, so it sounded like from what I heard you say is that you were using your professional judgment, and there wasn't really any empirical data that was used to make the determination about Andrew versus Glaucus versus any of the other streets, Jason, Ashbury, and Hillcrest. So the reality is that on the south end there, Glaucus could very much use a crosswalk. And that, since we're spending money that was initially allocated for a study to be able to assess what the right solution was for this street, I would ask that we bifurcate these two issues related to the lane diet. And instead, I would move that we add a third crosswalk, raised crosswalk at Glaucus, and approve Sanford and Andrew and Orpheus. And then with regard to the striping, my preference is that it not move the center line. So don't scrunch everything over to the west and reduce the lane width, because we know that has a tendency to calm traffic. But this idea of trying to encourage people to walk with their back to cars that are approaching them just doesn't seem like it's in the best interest of the community or the city. So I guess I made a motion there to bifurcate and approve 4 crosswalks, 4 raised crosswalks. And so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hensy.
Thank you. Abe, while you're there, I wanted to clarify a point that we had brought up in the last time we saw this item, and it was at the request of Commissioner Von Neumann to avoid using thermoplastic for any of the on-street legends. And I noticed that it appears that some of the legends have been changed to paint, but some might still remain as thermoplastic. Can you let us know what the status is of that?
Thank you, Councilmember Hensy. No, we on this plan, if there is anything remaining that shows thermal, it should be modified. On this plan, based on council's direction, we are going with paint. However, at a near future date, we will come back to council with a clear policy. There has been conversations between our previous development services, current infrastructure and sustainability department, and our public works department, with the concerns of maintenance costs and how we want to implement these shadows around the city. We will come back to the city council with a clear policy on how we want to implement thermal shadows versus regular paint shadows on city streets. But on this specific plan, everything will be shareable because of the clear direction we had from council.
Okay, thank you. So I will respond to some of the comments that the speakers made and also to Deputy Mayor Krantz. I spent a lot of time out here on Vulcan observing the behaviors I see. And with or without these lane markings, there are a lot of people who currently walk on the east side. There are also a lot of people who currently walk on the west side. So my feeling is that it's important to go forward with this restriping plan. And it's not because I don't agree with the ultimate goal, because I'm 100% in agreement that there needs to be a safe walking path on both sides of Vulcan. But I think that taking a chip away at this problem is going to have the intended effect that we desire, which is to lower the speeds. And once the speeds are lower, there might be more opportunities for additional raised crosswalks. But I know that it's tricky to put in raised crosswalks where speeds might be too high at this time. And so I'm really eager to see this item pass. I will say that if we narrow the lane and we don't create an east side buffer, or if we narrow the lane and we don't move the center line, we will create 2 substandard paths on both sides. And my concern is that we will have this opportunity where people currently walk on the east side be impeded by parked cars, because the cars will come and park right up to the line on the east side. And then kids and their parents were going to have to be weaving in and out, not only of parked cars, but also the driveways that we're worried about. So I understand the constraints that Abe's enumerated for us, that we would have to go to Coastal Commission to get the approval to do the parallel parking. I'm in support of that, but I don't want to hold this improvement, much necessary improvement, up for the sake of that more longer term project. So to me, this seems like a good compromise and a way to get something started without letting perfect be the enemy of the good. And so I accept this staff report and this proposal as is.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mosca.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to be out on Lone Jack the other day when we were just completing the long-awaited sewer line project completion, and they were just putting the finishing touches on that, and they were doing some thermoplastic of the crosswalks there. And I got out of the car and just went up and talked to some of the folks there. Now they use like almost, it's not just like that. It's not just the material that they're using, but they have like some sort of like pebbles or rock that they put in the thermoplastic. And they say that, I asked them several times, I'm like, is this slippery for bikes? And they said, no, we put this material in there and, put some water on there. It's not slippery at all. And so I get constant emails from members of the public that say that this material is not something we should use. We should be painting, but then staff says it actually has a longer life, and it makes more sense to use this material. So I'm just trying to decide, I guess that policy is coming back at some point, Abe, but just want more information because there's conflicting information out there in terms of the use of this material. But yesterday was when I was on the ground. I mean, you could feel it. It's almost like sandpaper. And so I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I know it's not completely on topic, but I know that, since Councilmember Hinsey brought it up, I thought I'd just see what your thoughts are.
Thank you, Councilmember. Yes, this has been a long standing question among engineers and maintenance teams and street crews and bicyclists. My response is very, very simple. It comes from hearing from sports cyclists and people who are on their bikes way, way more than me. And almost 99% of them don't like thermal. So now if it's the friction, if it's the certain thickness that it has, it's the lip of it, if it's the, I don't know, if it's the rumble, if it's the fact that most of our sports cyclists ride on tires that are on like 120 PSI, or like very, very solid tires. If that, I don't know. I ride my bike probably, I don't know, half a mile a week, if that. So I'm not a pro on that, but I've heard from our sports cyclists, from not even sport, like even average riders who ride a lot, they don't like it. They always say they prefer regular paint. So if there is any kind of a national study that has like technically compared these two together, I don't know, but I can easily say that I know our cyclists, not just ours, like no cyclist likes that. If you give them an option, almost 99%, all of them will choose regular paint.
All right. Well, I look forward to that discussion, Abe, and all the cost benefit analysis that you'll love putting together. But anyways, back to the topic at hand. I think all of us acknowledge the fact that this corridor has many more needs than we can address, that we're addressing right now, and that we can address in the most immediate sense, and that we need to do a lot more. And so I think that what this project is about, the goal of this project is to start to help calm the traffic on Vulcan. As we're basically modifying the 101, North Coast 101, we may be experiencing more cut through on Vulcan, specifically North Vulcan. And here's an opportunity to kind of to make sure that we're doing everything we can to calm traffic. This isn't the silver bullet, as they say. This isn't the end of the story for this road. There's a lot more that we need to do. And I'm supportive of moving forward with this. I'm committed to making sure that we're doing everything we can to make this corridor safe, calm, so that people can safely, walk on the sidewalks. They can cross the road, and so more to come. But I think it makes sense. We tasked our staff with coming up with some solutions in the most immediate sense, and I think that they've brought us some solutions here. They make sense. So I'll move this. But I also think that in my motion, if you can reach out to Deputy Mayor Kranz and if he has, I'm not sure why this wasn't done already, but if he has ideas about where crossings go, I mean, I think that should be taken into consideration where the most ideal location for crossing is. I don't know if you guys have gotten together, but if you can talk about where the ideal location is, they look fine to me. But if Deputy Mayor Kranz has a kind of a better idea of where they should go, then perhaps we can, if it makes sense, adjust them. But I'll move the staff's recommendation on this item.
I'll second that as long as it's, just the staff recommendation and not moving the crosswalks. I think, so just to clarify, and I mean, let me just explain that. So, I mean, we all have access to staff, right? This has been on the agenda, that's been published. We all have weekly city manager meetings. There are a lot, this is now the second time, if not more than that, this has been on the agenda. So to me, it's really important. I'm just going to echo what Councilmember Hinsey and Councilmember Mosca have said, that we don't want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. This improves things. I think we want to be moving forward with improvements, even recognizing if it's not the ultimate improvement. And there, in my mind, there's no question that raised crosswalks, just like on Highway 101, will have a traffic calming effect on Vulcan. And so I think our staff does a great job of trying to find ways to work within budget and do things quickly and get changes on the ground. And so, I'm feel like it's important that we have the design immunity, that this is the reason this entire item is coming back in the first place, because we already had this conversation, pretty fully last time. And I'll just address the other two things that are on my mind. So the thermoplast, I mean, to me, it seems like one of the main issues is just that it creates a bump. Like, people prefer to ride their bicycle on a flat, straight road, not flat, but on a road that doesn't have a lot of bumps on it. And when you run over these things like that, say Sharrow or say anything in thermoplast, it's like it creates a bump. And the reality is it creates a bump in your car. Like it's a big enough bump that if you're paying attention, it adds this variability to the ride that's like pretty unpleasant. I mean, I think to me, it seems like we're headed toward, if we want more cyclists, and I think we clearly do, we're headed toward a reality where this is just part of the budget, is that it's painted. We're not putting it in like a more permanent plastic material on the ground that creates what cyclists consider to be a hazard. I mean, it was called a hazard in emails, and if it's slippery when wet, there's that issue, but then there's also just the fact that it's unpleasant to ride over them all the time, and we're putting them on the street. So, I look forward to an analysis of this, but it does seem to me like we're probably headed toward having to absorb the cost of just doing, we spend more than $3 million on paving every year because we're always refreshing our pavement. So having the refreshment of our lines be part of that project, or part of our annual maintenance budget, seems to me like it's somewhat inevitable. But the other thing I wanted to mention that was mentioned by the public comments, and we got an email about it, are all of these signs. So there are all these metal posts, and that the photos that were sent in the email were striking to me. It does seem like there's a huge proliferation of all of these signs, and then other things that seem to be like redundant, like the wheel stops right behind another wheel stop, and it looks like we haven't really applied an aesthetic sense to this. And so I wanted to ask staff to just address that, like the kind of sign clutter and visual effect of what we're doing out there. Because it is important that we try to maintain this area. I mean, that's one of the reasons we took on the responsibility from North County Transit District, so that we could maintain it and have it look better.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My understanding is that we are proceeding in the removal of the additional curbs that appear to be redundant. That is moving forward. However, with respect to the signage, I understand that was part of the NCTD design that was approved by NCTD. We are happy to initiate discussions with NCTD to seek some modifications and to address the issue of the numerous signage that is located in the NCTD right of way.
Okay, I mean, I would just say that we need to pay attention to what we're doing there. So to the extent messaging can be combined into one sign, or, and not just have it kind of cluttered all over the place. Because it did, someone's called in about it today, and then also we've received emails about it, and it did look to me like it was excessive. But I'll let you handle that, and just hopefully we can have an eye toward that in the future. So I do think there's been a motion and a second.
I would like to respond to the comments by Councilmember Mosca. I have had several conversations with staff about this project, and apparently there were other people having conversations as well, and so my perspective wasn't really taken into consideration. It doesn't appear, And so in the meantime, I also want to point out that this wasn't really budgeted for. The money that's being spent for this is being reallocated from the study that we committed to doing as part of the approval of the streetscape. So let's be clear about that. This is a staff-driven reallocation of money. And so that's unfortunate. There is $15,000 left, so you could do another raised crosswalk there at Glaucus without any trouble whatsoever. And there's no speed issue. There's no difference in speed between Glaucus and Sanford. That's just an argument that falls flat on its face. But in the end, here's the thing. I got a new bike. I ride my bike almost every day. At least 4 days a week, I am southbound on Vulcan after inspecting, taking a look at construction for the day. As it is now, I can get to the side of the road and I can watch in my rearview mirror the approaching cars. But I feel better because I know that that car can pass me without any trouble. And essentially what you're doing with the approval of this project is you're creating a lane that I will have no escape from other than to drive in the dirt. And so it's really unfortunate that instead of standing and observing, maybe there should have been more bike riding, because this is not good for bicyclists like me, who really doesn't want to take the lane and who is really intimidated by looking in my rearview mirror and seeing cars that are going twice as fast as me. And I'm on an e-bike, so I'm cranking it out because I don't want to be on Vulcan too long. So, but they're approaching me with great haste, and it's really unfortunate that there is this decision here being made that is going to make my ride that much less comfortable. So I spoke last time along these same lines. I gave it a try this time, and so at this point, apparently I'm not making a very effective point. But I'll keep you all in mind while I'm on that bike ride.
Excuse me, Mayor, if I may just mention something. It's not a response to Councilmember Krantz, just something that was brought up for the benefit of public. There is a code, Councilmember, that I think passed 2-3 years ago for drivers who are listening to us tonight. Drivers in California are not allowed to pass a bicyclist within a lane unless they have that 3.5 foot shy distance. I'm not sure what the code exactly says. I think it's like 3 or 4 feet. With the 12-footer lanes or 12.5-footer lanes that we have on Vulcan right now, even if you ride on the edge of the lane, drivers are not supposed to pass you.
Yeah, it wouldn't it be nice if they had followed that law? That would be great.
I'm just saying
most of them accelerate and pull in the lane to the side and occasionally flip the bird because they don't like bicyclists. But that's the unfortunate nature of being on a bike on a street like Vulcan. The one other thing I would like to ask, in the center line restriping, are you going to keep the same configuration? Some areas are double line, some are dash line. Will those same configurations be part of this new center line, or is it going to be double line the whole way?
Well, as far as I know, it's going to be double. We don't want anybody passing anybody on such a narrow lane after we implement lane.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem too. So that's unfortunate, but it's temporary. So we'll get back to it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lyons.
Yes, I mostly just had a question. I think that the staff recommendation does achieve traffic calming, and I'm in favor of that. But Abe, I did hear you say that there intends to be additional study associated with traffic calming along this same section. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, Councilmember. We are in process of conducting an additional supplemental study to make sure we haven't missed anything.
Okay, that's good. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we have a motion from Councilmember Mosca and a second from me. So let's go ahead and vote.
And it's for staff recommendation, correct?
Yes.
All right, Councilmember Hensy?
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Councilmember Mosca?
Yes.
Councilmember Krantz?
No.
And Mayor Blakespear?
Yes.
Motion carries with Deputy Mayor Krantz voting no.
Okay, thank you. I think we're now on to our appeal.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Would you like to go over the procedures for that, please, City Clerk?
Yes, I will. So tonight's item before us is an appeal, and in this case, the applicant is the appellant. So what will happen first is staff will give their agenda report. Next, council will be asked to disclose any information they have received that is not included in the agenda report. At that time, we'll also have preliminary questions. Once the preliminary questions are done, we will, the mayor will open the public hearing. The appellant / applicant will have 10 minutes to provide his presentation. That 10 minutes does include any representatives of the applicant / appellant. After that, we will have public speakers. Once public speakers are finished, then the applicant / appellant will have 5 minutes of rebuttal. At that time, then council will have discussion and action. The mayor may or may not close the public hearing. Again, council will have discussion and action, and then the public hearing will be closed.
Okay, thank you. And does the city attorney want to say anything?
Thank you, Your Honor. I could say something a little bit about the parameters of the appeal, if you would like, that might be instructive at this point in time. If for just a little bit, that is that the project qualifies for by right approval, which exempts the project from review under the California Environmental Quality Act, and the city's actions must also conform with state law called the Housing Accountability Act. The parameters for consideration on the Vulcan appeal, those parameters, it's important to note that this is by right, a by right project. And while other appeals in the past have basically opened up for the whole project to be in front of you, sometimes those are called de novos, because this is by right, it's more limited, so it's a different situation. So the following issues before you, and a lot of this is in the agenda report as well, is the design review permit. Was the Planning Commission's decision based on the appropriate objective design standards? And if not, does the project comply with the applicable objective design standards? And then the other issue before the council is the density bonus waivers. Is the developer entitled to the requested waivers? In other words, has the developer demonstrated that the development standards, which it seeks to waive, would physically preclude the development of the project as proposed? And those are the issues before you tonight, and I think those are also spelled out in the agenda report.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. So we will have the staff report first.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members and members of the public. I'm Anna Colamusi. I'll be sharing the Vulcan appeal with you all this evening. Okay, do you all see the PowerPoint?
We do. Thank you.
So what I wanted to start off with is the project site location, which is 1967 North Vulcan Avenue. It's bounded by Vulcan Avenue and single-family residential to the north, multifamily and single-family homes to the south, and single-family residential to the east, and Vulcan Avenue and the transit corridor, where the railroad tracks are, to the west. The project site is an identified housing element site allocated to address the regional housing needs assessment for the city of Encinitas. It was referred to as Site AD8, the Vulcan and La Costa. The proposed applications include a request for a density bonus, design review permit, and coastal development permit. As mentioned, this project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. Just an overview of the project description. It's to demolish existing structures on site and construct a 72-unit apartment building, including leasing and amenity space, and site improvements including grading, parking, and landscaping, as well as a temporary construction trailer. The Vulcan project was heard by Planning Commission on June 3rd, where it was continued, a date certain, to June 17th. And at the Planning Commission, June 17th Planning Commission, the project was then denied. A timely appeal was filed by the project applicant. I'm going to go ahead and go through all of the appellant's issues and provide staff's response, summarizing what was in the staff report. The appellant's first issue is in regards to the North 101 Corridor Specific Plan applicability versus the city's design guidelines. As outlined in the report, the environmental assessment, which was approved as part of the housing element, references the requirement to comply with Chapter 23.08 of the Municipal Code. Chapter 2308 then references the City of Encinitas design guidelines to apply. The guidelines further specify that, and this is a quote, specific plan areas contain separate design guidelines, and applications for projects located in those areas should instead refer to the design recommendations in the applicable specific plan. Therefore, the project was reviewed against the specific plan design recommendations. Issue number 2 references the project qualifies as by right and that only objective quantifiable standards may apply to the project. It further describes the subjective nature of the findings utilized to deny the project. Those specific guidelines are listed on page 5 of the staff report. The project does meet the criteria for by right development by not proposing subdivision and by providing 20% of the base density units as affordable. An objective design standard has been defined by the State Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, as one that is measurable and verifiable and does not require any discretion. The design guidelines utilized to deny the project did not identify what constitutes a large flat roof, for example. Therefore, if those cities' design guidelines applied, that specific one would not have been applied. As you have seen in the agenda report, the applicant did, however, make changes to the design to be more in compliance with the subjective standards. And I want to share those in the next slide. I went ahead and showed the Planning Commission on the top and then the revised changes on the bottom. You can see the roof changes, the material changes, and some of the landscape changes on this image here. And as well as a mural added to the amenity building. And then before and after photo here, some important things to note are the mural added and the garage types varied, as well as the material changes and the roof line modifications. Attention was also provided to the interior of the project site by adding the materials to soften the view. Moving on to issue number 3. The appellant stated that the findings required under Government Code Section 65589.5 were not made to deny the project. These are the findings here. It is correct, they were not made as part of the Planning Commission decision. However, there was no evidence submitted to support any of the findings. Appellant issue number 4 is that Government Code Section 65589.5D for the requested waivers findings were not made by Planning Commission to deny the requested waivers of the project. And these are the findings listed here on this slide if we need to come back to it. Just a brief overview of what those 2 waivers were included a reduction from 15 feet to 8 feet of a landscape buffer, and a second reduction in the amount of cubic feet of storage for each unit. Though the project is not providing the landscape buffer, the project provides a 46-foot building setback and an 8-foot landscape buffer from the single and multifamily residences to the south, and provides a building setback ranging from 17 feet to 46 feet from the adjacent single-family residences to the east. Again, it is accurate that the findings to deny the waivers were not made by the Planning Commission. No evidence has been identified to support or justify the denial of the requested waivers. There is one item that the applicant, as noted in the report, did modify, and that is to add additional bike storage. As you have seen in the past few days, there have been comments from the public that have been sent to council and staff. And this is just a summary of some of the issues: traffic, pedestrian and cyclist safety, community character, density, lack of affordable housing units, the setbacks and height, site design, architectural design, and public health and safety risks. We did look into all of the data that was provided by the members of the public, and we feel that the Planning Commission report has addressed the issues as well as the last Planning Commission hearing. The issues in support of the project noted the need for housing, the willingness of the applicant to make changes, and the understanding of the by right process, as well as the appreciation of the inclusion of public art. In conclusion, staff recommends that City Council set aside the denial and adopt the resolution 2021-86 to approve the project, subject to the conditions of approval. This concludes my presentation, and we do have staff available to answer any question from the various divisions, traffic, fire, and feel free to ask questions if needed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the staff report. Next, we have disclosure of any other information received. So I'll go ahead and go first. So I met with the applicant, and I've received emails, and I have not watched any videos that were sent to us. So I'll just call on you in the order I see you on my screen. So Deputy Mayor Kranz.
Yes, I met with Nicola Ranson and their neighbor Ross Faustine. Did go to their house and take a look at the impacts of this project on their property. Early on in this process, I did have a Zoom meeting with a big group of people. I didn't get all of their names, but it was interested parties from the neighborhood. I did meet with the developer both before the project was presented to the Planning Commission as well as after, when the modifications have been made. I got a bunch of emails, including the one with the video, and I did watch that video, but it will have no effect. I will not take it into consideration as part of this hearing.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lyons.
I have met with the applicant, Austin Ramirez, and his consultant before the Planning Commission and also after the Planning Commission. And I have received emails from the community and from residents regarding pros and cons associated with this application. And I did, in one of those emails was a video, which I did see, and it will not influence my decision on this project.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hensy.
I did also meet with the applicant on 3 different occasions prior to the Planning Commission hearing and afterwards. I also met with neighbors who wished to meet with me and discuss their concerns. That included members of Now Leucadia. And I also shared the developer's contact information with groups who were interested in meeting with him and vice versa. I did receive the video, but I did not watch it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mosca.
I did meet with the applicant before the Planning Commission process and then after. One was virtual and one was in person. Didn't receive any information that's not contained already in the record. Received numerous emails, attended a community meeting that was not actually focused on this item, but where it was brought up by residents in the surrounding area. But no, at no time did I receive information that's not already contained in the record.
Okay, thank you. So next we have opening the public hearing, which I will officially do. It's now open. And we will go to the appellant, who is also the applicant, and he has 10 minutes, up to 10 minutes.
Yeah, can you share my screen? Can you hear me all?
We can hear you and see your presentation.
Oh, perfect. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Austin Wormers. I'm the owner representative for tonight. I want to first off by starting this presentation by thanking everyone, not only the city council members, but the city staff, the community members, anybody who's reached out to me throughout this time process. I super appreciate it. I developed in lots of different cities, and we are in a unique city by the passion that we have by taking an active role in everything. So first and foremost, thank you to everybody. I personally grew up here in North County. I attended St. John's Elementary School with my brothers, and I'm honored to have the ability to come back here and not only live in North County, but also develop in North County. So Wormers is first and foremost a family company. We're a third generation builder. The company was started by my grandfather with a pickup truck. And I care deeply about preserving what makes this place so special. We're not a traditional developer. We don't just build and move on to the next city. At Wormers, we feel that the community feedback doesn't attract from the process, but actually makes it stronger. And you'll see it over and over throughout the process that this has taken for the 2-year process in tonight's presentation. So I have a commitment that I'm making to the community. I'm trying to solve 3 things. 1, I'm trying to solve the housing crisis in our community. 2, I'm trying to solve infrastructure benefit in Leucadia. By happenstance, we were actually talking about Vulcan Avenue. And then 3, I listened to the community and I was called to action to make changes on my building. So I knew from day one when I looked at this site that it was going to come down to mitigation versus elimination. And so even though we had the right to build up to 90 units and only 9 affordable, we looked at the site and we're actually only proposing 72 units and 12 affordable units. Now that might not seem like a big number to anybody, but it's actually a 20% reduction in the market rate and a 33% increase in the affordability. Why this is important to point out to you all. It's to express my true sincerity of balancing the need for housing that we all have and something that doesn't overwhelm the community character. This is really a needle that needs to be thread throughout not just this development, but really all sites that are coming forward today. So what did I hear from the community? I heard 1, roof lines should be varied. 2, I heard apparent massing of each building should be minimized. 3, unbroken wall plans should be avoided. 4, this is my favorite one. It's undefinable, but I'm sure you all heard it before, which is keep Leucadia funky. I don't know how many times I heard it, but that one resonates with me. And then native trees and plants. Now, we're working with staff, and you just heard we've met all the objective standards, but tonight I'm going beyond that because I want to show that I listened and I care about the community. So as the staff showed the before and after photos, the variant roof lines, and you could see we kind of did an homage to the slanted greenhouses that were once here. We brought in more organic feeling wood tones to the building. We created this butterfly roof for the club room building. And our plan is to have hand-painted local artists. And you'll see a couple images tonight that actually, this mural, it kind of looks like it's surfing the actual building that we thought was unique to the Leucadia Funky. All of this is tied to local community character. The other thing we heard was native landscaping. So we wanted more shade. We had too many palm trees, candidly, in our design. So we went through our design and picked locations where we could add more canopy trees for shading, more natural and organic feeling landscaping versus some sort of like apartment building feel that we had originally. Also, we have a community garden where we're going to have local grown produce for the community that's going to live here. One of the concepts that we're toying with the community is there's actually 3 benches that's along Vulcan Avenue that we're putting in. And these 3 benches, we thought it would be great to do like some sort of art piece inside the benches, something that could be a part when we're driving kind of our own, Cardiff coupe down on Vulcan that people can look at and know it's, hey, I'm into this part of Leucadia. So here's the before and after. City staff talked about it. There's oscillating roof lines that breaks up the massing now. We brought in that wood tone that's more organic. We have another mural piece that ties together with a more natural stone versus tile type look. And then when you go down low, what we added was a living wall. So there's a touch and feel to the building. And then to keep it more funky for Leucadia, every third garage, we're going from glass garage to more standard garage. And it's going back and forth throughout the thing. It's all because we listened. We heard what they said and we listened. Parking and traffic, always a point in which for the community. So we're only required to park 89 spaces. We're parking 111. The other thing, one of my favorite things about this town is you don't have to rely on a car to get anywhere. You can hop on your bike. So we're adding bike storage to this space so that we envision people from this site going down to the Panikin to get coffee on their bikes, or to the Fish 101, or to the Sunday, farmers market. We have a bike culture here, and I want to preserve that bike culture. Here's the back of the building. Again, we were still able to keep the roof line down to be sensitive to the neighbors behind us, but still tie in these elements to soften the effects. So what did we hear? We heard varying roof lines. We heard minimize the apparent massing using unique textures. We heard add art, stone, a butterfly roof, keep it Leucadia funky, keep that character in our homes. Program native plants, have more canopy trees to enhance natural beauty. And then we also heard focus on mobility and access to the community. We received several comments from the community on how we could improve this. And you can see tonight, I took all of it to heart. I listened to everything people had to say, and I leaned in as much as I possibly could because I knew it was going to be a sensitive area. So then when it comes to city improvements, you can see this is Vulcan as it sits today. A picture says 1,000 words, right? We all, we draw images and maybe you can see it, but this is what it is today. You can't get to the beach. It's not safe. And there's no way it promotes biking. I sat down and went, okay, would I feel comfortable with my wife pushing the stroller down this road? No. Would I feel comfortable with my nephews riding their bikes down the road? No. So why would the community? So even though it's not a requirement for the project to do certain improvements, we did them anyways. Here's what it will be tomorrow. Vulcan Avenue gets widened. We're adding a new bike lane. We're adding sidewalks to both sides to promote better pedestrian safety. When we do this, it also promotes vehicle safety. The sight line is dramatically taken care of now. We're doing the other thing that we're doing here that is not a requirement by any of the staff is we leaned in because we're part of the community to pay our fair share of whatever the future intersection on La Costa and Leucadia, or sorry, La Costa Avenue and Vulcan, whatever it may be, we're going to pay our fair share. If it's a roundabout, great. If it's a signalization, great. Whatever you guys decide, we want to pay our fair share. So these are all, what I showed you were all city improvements that's going to be enjoyed by all locals. They're not cheap improvements. Most of them are not a requirement, but we did them because it was the right thing to do for the community. The same people that gave us feedback on the project are the same people who are going to be the beneficiaries to the efforts I just showed you. Then when planning for future generations, I always want to think about sustainability. I want to think about maximizing the number of solar panels on the roof, which is what we're doing. Thinking about green eco-friendly concepts like bike storage, hopping on your bike, clean renewable energy, having electric vehicle charging stations. So it's no longer about the sticks and bricks when you put them up. It's about enhancing it through affordability and also eco-friendly. So I only have one request tonight, and I know my time ran out. Consider the overall merits of the Vulcan project in the context of objective standards. Let's not get distracted of what my primary goal is tonight and the communities, which is to provide the necessary housing that we all need for our essential workers, for our firefighters, for our teachers, and those who live here, and more importantly, those who want to stay here. This development is for local Lacadians with local jobs who live and work here. Thank you so much for letting me run over on my time.
Well, thank you, Austin, for the presentation. Now we will go to public comment. So how many do we have?
We have about 16.
Okay.
Looks like there's 14 in the queue, but I don't think all of them are registered for this item. So we will start. Our first is Ron Ranson.
I don't see him online.
I see Nicola Ranson. I do not see Ron Ranson. Nope. Okay. Faustine Ross.
I wonder if Ron and Nicola are using the same
Yeah, that's what I
login.
wanted. That's what I wondered. So when I get to Nicola, I'll see if Ron is there as well.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
So my name's Faustine. Our property borders the proposed Vulcan property. I think, when we moved in about 6 months ago, I was pretty, we knew about the project. We knew that it would potentially block out our view of the ocean. And that's something that we've come to accept. I think my biggest concern is right now, just the noise mitigation and what we plan to do with 72 units and the noise that is going to bring about. I mean, as of now, we can hear everything. And despite it being late, we can hear disagreements outside. We can hear cars backing up, and that's at all hours of the night. And so I'm just kind of worried about what's the recourse if we do have some noise complaints of residents maybe dumping trash or having arguments in the parking lot or whatever. I know that it's a rental. And so my thought is, what can we as neighboring, the neighbors, what can we do with the residents if there are parties or messes or trash being thrown over the fence? Yeah, that's essentially it.
Next speaker is Scott French. Scott will be followed by Julie Reagan.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thanks for having me. I just wanted to say that I'm for the project. I've been a resident of Encinitas here off of High Meadows for 6 years, and I also lived in Bird Rock years ago when it went through its revitalization, and there was a lot of opposition to that being, a funky town and all of the newness coming to that area. And I just think that Vulcan is primed for revitalization. I walk my dog down to Vulcan and up La Costa Avenue, and that whole corner there, I think, is extremely dangerous. And I think what Austin's doing in that area is excellent. You have 113 parking spaces. You look through, when I go down Vulcan, half the multi-dwelling units there, to me, look very dilapidated. I mean, I don't think it's attractive at all. And I really love this design. And I think it's something the community needs. The affordable housing is important. And I just think that whole area could use this type of revitalization. And I think it'll be great for businesses. Fish 101 and all of the restaurants in the area will benefit from it. So that's just my 2 cents on it. I think it's needed.
Next is Julie Reagan.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Nice to see you all tonight. I'm a 20-year Leucadia resident. I have 2 kids that went through Encinitas school system. I'd like to start off by just saying, Austin, those are amazing renderings. I think it's beautiful. All along Vulcan has already been passed and upgraded with refurbished apartments, new housing. There's a new hotel at the end of the Costa, and the progress stops at the lot in question. I mean, currently there is the infamous Jesus Christ is Lord sign, dilapidated rundown buildings, and it's an eyesore. We need housing in Leucadia, and growth is inevitable. We're doing it already with Streetscape. The project will bring jobs, more income. It'll bring a cohesive growth and appeal all along Vulcan. I am at a loss as to why any resident would be against this project. And I've heard their concerns that it'll block their view, and it won't. I've heard that it'll create traffic. And with the new three-way stop sign, it won't. There's not that many people moving into this new building. People work from home. They have different schedules. I mean, it's not going to be a massive traffic problem with the number of units in question. I think we need to 100% quit debating this. I mean, it's going to be developed at one point. Why don't we review it now, pass it, and move forward? Thank you.
Next speaker is Hugh Buchanan. Hugh, you need to unmute your microphone. Hugh, can you unmute your microphone? Okay, appears to be some problems there. So let's move to Guy Eldridge.
Hello, my name is Guy Eldridge. I'm a local resident in Encinitas too. Been here for about 15 years. I just wanted to say thank you for giving me the time today, and just want to show my support for the Vulcan housing project. As I, fundamentally believe it'll develop just more housing opportunities for those who can't afford this, increased single-family homes. The prices continue to grow. My son, age 13, and his friends voiced their concerns about being able to live in Encinitas as they get older. And without providing these alternative housing options for both the younger generation and those with limited incomes, I really feel like we start to risk losing that diversity and perspective in our communities that really adds to, Leucadia's funkiness. And so to the earlier points, Encinitas is growing. And in my opinion, this project provides that additional housing opportunities. But most importantly, it's really that entry point for those who fell in love with Leucadia. It gives them a chance to be a resident, contribute to the community they live in, and then also buy from those local shop owners. So, based on all the points earlier, I too am just very supportive of the project, and I feel it'll just help our community. It'll better the area that it's in as it starts to connect and provide more opportunities for people to grow up and experience that beach living. Thank you.
Next speaker is Liz Ramirez.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. I am also a San Diego resident. I've been a resident for over 30 years, and I am in proponent of this project being built. I think that the architecture is right on with the coastal design. As some of the previous callers have said, with the price of housing, with the median house being 1.4 million, this actually gives an opportunity for some folks to have some housing. And I think that it is behooved of the city of Encinitas to approve this project. and have it be built. And I am in support of Vulcan. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Nicola Ranson.
Hi, am I on?
Yes, you are.
Good evening, everyone. So I have concerns about this project and also about how it's come about. I'm originally English, and I'm very fond of rural English villages. And I realize when I see them that they would not exist if it hadn't been for strict building regulations. And you, as the City Council, have worked for years to create regulations to protect our community from ugly overbuilding that's a threat to the environment, to traffic safety, and our quality of life. This includes the visual ugliness when there's a solid block of building that's not broken up. And I'm talking about not the appearance of not being broken up, but actually not being broken up. Your planning commission followed your laws when it denied 1967 Vulcan. They were also willing to work with Mr. Vermes to improve his design. Instead, he chose to bring his slightly improved design now to you to test the new by right law, trusting that the state has his back, and it may well do so. But you, the council, represent us, the citizens. We're also the community that the new residents of Vulcan need to live among. We're the community that Mr. Vermes will be facing for the rest of his life as we love or create the creation he would have put there. Of course, we have to obey the law, but you also get to interpret it and do your best to make sure it's for the best interest of the citizens, not just the building industry. We can have an even more attractive building with its 12 so-called affordable units. Support your residents and your planning commission and stop this underhanded approach of bypassing common sense. If Mr. Vermes wants community support, he can follow our local laws and respect the objective findings of the Planning Commission and their subjective experience and good sense. Don't bow to the building industry's hold on Sacramento and their absurd findings that heights and building articulation are not objective. Do the right thing and send this project back to the Planning Commission. Mr. Vermes now seems to be showing good faith in his attempts to make the structure better. And I think it's an odd thing to me though, because I think this kind of invalidates this as an appeal, as it's no longer the same project that was denied. But nevertheless, it's great that he's doing this, and he's doing what the Planning Commission asked him to do. But he could have complied with them instead of taking this to the next level of going for your approval, knowing that you will be afraid of lawsuits. And is acting out of fear of lawsuits the right way to govern? I believe it's your job to do the right thing and support your residents and uphold the Planning Commission's vote on this issue. I don't think you or I have the qualifications to make the ultimate design decisions. That's why you appointed a Planning Commission. Please support them in maintaining local control and have Encinitas, not the state, be in charge of the appearance of our village before it's too late.
Nicola, is Ron speaking as well?
No, he's not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Next is Heidi Ledger.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Hi, thank you all so much for having me. My name is Heidi Ledger. I am a local homeowner raising a family here in Leucadia. I have 3 young kids. I also own a business right along the 101 in Leucadia, and just south of the post office. And my kids attend the little red school, the Leucadia Children's School, right there along Vulcan. So I've spent a lot of time over the last 5 years driving to and from and biking to and from and walking to and from all along Vulcan and the corridor right there, going to and from work and home and my kids' schools. I want to say that I support this project wholeheartedly. I really love to see more diversity here in Encinitas. I've literally noticed the difference since Encinitas for Equality has been more outspoken about everything following the Black Lives Matters movement. And I've just seen an increased diversity of background of people, of income, of ethnic makeup, of ancestry, all of those good things. And I really see this project as kind of furthering that. I think that a lot of us are aware, after everything with the housing issues in this city and with the safe parking program and all of that, that there is clearly a need for affordable housing for people working in trades in the service industry. That includes my industry, it's retail. I think that the people in the city of Encinitas, they come in and they say, oh my gosh, we love having local retail. We love having the opportunity to shop local, shop small, keep it small, keep it local. And a natural extension of that is that if you want to have that, there need to be people working in these places. And if you want to have people working at my store, I am paying above a living wage for San Diego. And despite that, the girls who work for me could never afford to live in Encinitas on their own. It's just not feasible for them. So I think that if we talk about keeping it funky, keeping it small, keeping it local, these are things that we need to look at with a holistic lens. They all fit together. And I don't think that if we don't take these concrete steps towards having a stock of for rent apartments for middle class and lower income residents of our city, we're going to lose these strides towards diversity that we've been making. And when rents rise and property values go up, these people are the most vulnerable. So I truly support this project and any other project that would bring greater stock of apartments and middle and low income housing to our city.
Next is Michelle Dossett.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Hi, good evening. My name is Michelle Dossett, and I support the development of more multifamily housing and especially affordable housing in Encinitas. I was fortunate to grow up in Encinitas. I even attended the Encinitas Magdalena Ecke YMCA for preschool, and that is where I work now as a full-time preschool teacher. I have been on affordable housing waitlists in North County for 4 years and have not been able to secure a place to call my own because there are not enough available housing units. Only one unit in one development has become available, and it was a 2-bedroom intended for a dual income family. Currently, I rent a room from a family friend in a live-in Hain while I search daily for my own apartment. While working toward receiving my education in early childhood development from Maricosa College, I found that I could no longer afford to live in Encinitas, and for a part-time, I had moved to Phoenix, Arizona, where I was able to afford an apartment while I was going to school. In 2017, my mother, who lives in Encinitas, became ill with cancer, and my sister and brother-in-law helped me move back to Encinitas so I could be closer to her. Thankfully, she is doing okay now, and I get to enjoy spending time with her throughout the week. I wish that there was a way I could afford to live in Encinitas or in any neighboring city for a place of my own, close to my family members and close to where I work. I have a nearly perfect credit score. I have saved money every month. I work full time, have no debt, and I still can't afford to live in Encinitas. Thank you for supporting people like me who grew up here, who work here, who have a family here, and who would like the opportunity to live here. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Diana Nunez.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor and council persons. I'd like to acknowledge and thank the planning commissioners for their rigor and the countless hours they dedicate to uphold the highest standards for our community. Also, I'd like to applaud the council for its efforts to provide highly needed affordable housing. The precedent-setting decision before you tonight, whether to approve the by right affordable housing project located in 1967 Vulcan, is one fraught with long-term ramifications. Density and responsible development are positive for the needed growth in our city. This growth should be planned with consideration to the impacts to the surrounding community and to the city as a whole. Under the pressure of the state of California's heavy hand, the challenge to provide responsible growth is increasingly difficult. The state has made much about objectivity and objective standards in their recent letter to the city, but has missed the forest through the trees. The design of this project has created many objections regarding size, scale, mass, and lack of community character. However, the greater issue voiced by the community is regarding valid public safety concerns and significant impacts that this project will generate on the surrounding community. These voices are not the voices of NIMBYism, as many in the community that live here believe there is a need for affordable housing in our community and utilizing high density. 1967 Vulcan is currently surrounded by incompetent and inadequate infrastructure. How is this site ever considered and designated for increase in higher density? Furthermore, this site does and did not meet most of the HCD best practice guidelines for site selection. The developer has not addressed these public safety issues related to traffic and access because his studies say that the impacts are insignificant. He has indicated that he can't, and that this responsibility lies within the city. I also would like to make a comment regarding affordability. We will get 412 affordable units from this project. The remaining units, those rates are market rate and have not been publicly displayed. I feel that the majority of those prices will probably be out of the reach of teachers and firefighters and service industries. So that's the other thing, objection with this project. We'd love to know that the rents will be affordable for middle class workers in our community, service workers, teachers, nurses, firefighters. Unfortunately, we don't know that. By the renderings, we see luxury cars in his renderings. So I don't know if that's really his target group. If this council is not willing to uphold the agreed specific conditions set by the environmental assessment of the approved HCD document and chooses to approve this project, what are the council's plans in regards to mitigating the untoward impacts on public safety that this project will impose on the community and the city at large? Thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Kevin Daniels.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening. I thank the City Council for the opportunity to voice my overwhelming support of this much needed Vulcan project here in Leucadia. We need affordable housing. I am Kevin Daniels and I have lived here for about 50 years. I grew up in Solana Beach, attended Torrey Pines High School when it first opened, and started my first real job at Fidel's in Solana Beach with the Nunez family, who I still work for today. Moving out at 18 was huge to us teenagers in the 70s. To find affordable housing at that time, we relied on the weekly publications of the Coast Dispatch and the San Diego Citizens newspapers, or to be lucky enough to know someone moving out of a house which provided an opportunity to snag a place to live. An old saying we used to have was, "There is no life east of I-5. And everyone lives in Village Park at some time in their life." Well, we have had progress grow all the way through our community, and now it's time to finish up in some other areas. Today, the problem remains nowhere to live. We need more roofs over our heads. This Vulcan project is perfect housing project to bookend the Vulcan Avenue and Leucadia. The Vulcan today possesses over 60 apartment and condo complexes from Leucadia Boulevard north to La Costa Avenue. I can't express this enough. This project is a perfect fit. Finally, some affordable housing. This project is close to all forms of transportation. This Vulcan project is the doorstep to walking to the beach, the coastal rail trail, the enhanced bicycle lanes, the Poinsettia rail station for commutes on both Coaster and Amtrak. This Vulcan project must move forward. Enough of the delays. This is a project that reduces our carbon footprint. I personally want my two daughters to be able to live in this town that they were born in, grew up in, and currently work in to remain possible. My daughters don't want to leave, but it is an expensive struggle without a roof over their head. This project is local, born, raised, and only trying to give back to the small town that we all love. I beg the City Council, the City of Encinitas, and the State of California to immediately approve this Vulcan project without further obstruction. Thank you.
Next speaker is Elena Thompson. Elena will be followed by Catherine Brown.
Hi, everybody. I'm enjoying a nice summer salad, so thank you for the opportunity to weigh in on this project down the street from where we live. The project is no doubt a beautiful project. The developers do good work. This appeal is not about which design standard the project is subject to or an improper denial. It's not about 12 of 72 units only being affordable. The major issue with the proposed Vulcan LLC project is the La Costa at Vulcan location and the resulting public health and safety risks it creates for all of us who live in the surrounding community. In the words of the HCD in their letter to the city attached to the staff report, per program 3D, projects that will be compromising, quote, compromising public health and safety should not be approved. In tonight's staff report, page 7, appellant issue number 3B, HCD again says how local agency shall not disapprove a housing development unless, quote, it would have a specific adverse impact upon the public health and safety, and there is no feasible method to satisfactorily mitigate. This project will compromise public health and safety due to its location. Even local California Assembly member Tasha Horvath said this about state housing law and its project approvals. Quote, we cannot generate affordable housing by trading it for reduced safety on our roads or by harming our environment. Folks, even the traffic study associated with this project clearly demonstrates and documents the major public health and safety risks with this project. Conducted in February 2020 during COVID, when no one was driving, the study concluded, quote, based on the analysis conducted for the 1967 North Vulcan project, the proposed project would result in exceeding the significance thresholds and or in the degradation of the levels of service to the study roadway facilities, that is La Costa and Vulcan, to a level of service E or F. Can you imagine for one of the roadway segments? The project, they continue to say, does result in a deficiency. Translation, public health and safety perils and risks. 72 units cannot be constructed where there are E and F currently deficient roads, no viable sidewalks, and no bike lanes. There is no doubt that this by right bonus density size and scale of a project would be located in the wrong place here. In sum, the reason I'm voting to recall Gavin Newsom is because he's approving and promoting these terrible housing policies for all of California. Please vote no and deny this project tonight. Thank you.
Next speaker is Catherine Brown.
Hi, Catherine here. Thank you for your time tonight. I am supporting the project, and I'm so sad that I see the housing shortage being reported on the news every day, every night. For the last hour and a half, as I've been waiting to be called, they've covered this shortage 3 to 4 times. They're stating that we are going to hit a 1.4 million average for sale price very soon. For the first time, this is affecting me and my family. I'm trying to move my grandparents and my mom here from Texas. They want to participate in our children's lives and be close to us. They want to take them to school, dance, and their sports activities. There are no apartments for rent. The occupancy rate is so high. Have you ever checked into the occupancy rate for North County, Encinitas, Leucadia, Carlsbad? The occupancy is extremely high. Tonight, I've listened to people talk about affordable versus market rate. There is affordable components, but there are a lot of people that can afford the market rate rent, but they cannot afford a $1.5 million, $2 million home in these locations. It is imperative that we build these apartments for our families, for our community. Let's connect our community and bring everyone together. I beg you to build housing and support this project. And thank you for your time.
And our final speaker is Hugh Buchanan. Hugh, you need to unmute your microphone. Appears that Hugh is having some technical difficulties. So that does conclude speakers.
I wonder if Hugh knows that if he puts his cursor over the Zoom screen there in the lower left, there's a little microphone that he can unclick so that he could speak.
I marked and asked him to unmute, so that should pop up in front of his screen telling him, and it should just be one button there.
I know he's the neighbor directly to the east, and we did get a letter from him, so.
Try promoting him to panelist if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah, we can try. Is he there?
Well, maybe we should continue trying to get him in, but let the applicant have his 5 minutes. And if he gets in, then he can speak after that. But you have a 5-minute rebuttal. Mr. Wormer.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I actually talked to Hugh the other day. So, and I'll start by Ms. Ross. You were talking about noise. He's also a neighbor. I'm going to meet him on site next week. Love to have you out there. And welcome to the neighborhood. I'll start there. You brought up legitimate concerns about the noise mitigation, and so what we did, if you looked at our building, we actually created an interior hallway that's different than a lot of buildings where you enter from the outside. This is going to reduce a lot of the noise. It's more expensive to build, candidly, but it was a way to reduce a lot of the noise. So once you enter the building, it's all encapsulated to reduce people walking and making noise. We also we made a roundabout so we'd have less cars in the back beeping and backing up, all to do with sound mitigation. So your concerns are legitimate. We have taken everything we possibly could do to mitigate them. So I appreciate you speaking tonight. I think I want to, if I could pull up an article because there were items that were talked about through the community. And I got anecdotal, oh, if I could share my screen. This is, a lot of it was about affordable housing at night and the apartment issues that are out there and this article came out literally 7 days ago. I literally just grabbed it off the cuff, and it literally says on the front page of the daily transcript, apartment vacancy rates reach a 20-year low. And it shows the vacancy rate at 2.9. It's never been like this before, members. And on the same page, if you could scroll down, on the very same page of the article, one second, I just want you guys to see it, because this is what we're talking about. In the same article, it talks about housing prices going the opposite direction, increasing 34% year over year in the second quarter. This is what you're hearing tonight. I know there are anecdotal stories of people coming in and trying to move into the neighborhood, or more importantly, as I pointed out, stay in the neighborhood. But this is real imperial, right from 7 days ago tonight, the real concern people have. And I applaud you. I got a little emotional listening to people's stories, to really take to heart what they're saying tonight and the real strains they have on their families just to move back to the community. So with that, I understand, Ms. Thompson, you mentioned another valid concern, which is about the roadways and infrastructure. And as you can see in my presentation, my sincerity of trying to address some of those issues. Now, I can't solve all issues with infrastructure everywhere around the city or to the remaining area. I kind of put it as sustainability, right? I can't suck all the carbon out of the issues. But what I can tell you is I took a sincere approach when it came to infrastructure. One of the members that spoke tonight, Danielle, I met with her 5 times. I met with the city with community members to try to solve these issues. And we came up with solutions using this project. We also brought other developers from other sites to try to reach conclusions. But I can't do everything all at once. And I am trying to solve this affordability crisis that's right in our face today. And I understand the need to have safe places to go. That's why I leaned in, and I'm paying for all this infrastructure, because I care about the same things you care about. And with that, I don't want to eat up any more time. I really appreciate everybody's comment tonight. Thank you.
Do we want to give Hugh Buchanan one more try?
Yes, if he's there.
Yeah, he's on as a panelist, but he's not unmuting or turning on video.
Hugh, if you can hear me, can you unmute your microphone?
Hugh's he's 86, so he may have some technology issues.
Kieran, can you unmute him?
No, I can't force him. It has to be done on his end.
Okay. Well, I see that my council colleague, the deputy mayor, has his hand up, so we'll let him speak first.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate all the input that we've received. I have to admit that this is not surprising, the amount of interest there has been regarding this project in the community, and I have done my best to try and keep up with the opportunity to speak with people when they made those requests. I do have a couple of questions related to some of the points that were made verbally tonight, and I apologize to Faustine for inverting her name when I did my disclosure. But I had questions about the trash service that is planned. I think you talked about the interior access to the trash cans, Mr. Wormers. I see on page 186 of the Planning Commission staff report that the trash enclosure is actually inside the building. It's not a trash enclosure that's going to be a typical three-sided with front gate doors and big dumpster, or how is this going to work?
Yeah, so if I'm able to speak, how it works is it actually has a trash chute, and the reason we did that from the second to third floor to trash chute to go into one vestibule area. The reason I did that was because of noise. People go out with their trash, they make a bunch of noise, and they throw it in the bin. And I thought the neighbors behind it would cause an issue. So it's actually in the corner, and so it mitigates the sound, and so that therefore the trash company comes and picks it up, and it alleviates some of that issue.
Are these dumpsters, or will they be the caddies that are at single-family homes? So how will the trash be handled?
Yeah, they're not dumpsters. They're not 40-yard bins. They're 4x5 bins, and they drop down, and they're easily moved by one trash personnel, and then hooked on the forks like your home, and then dropped in the big trash bins. And
you may have heard that we have an additional waste stream now in Encinitas that will include not only solid waste trash, but also green waste, food waste from the kitchen. Are you managing and recycling? Are you managing all three of these with the chute and this system?
Yeah, those are local laws that are coming to force on all apartment buildings as well in certain areas, and so we're accounting for that third chute.
Okay, thank you. Staff, could somebody on staff address a particular issue for me, which has to do with the traffic congestion that has been a significant challenge over the last few years in this area. Does a project like this, does the cumulative effect create a health and safety issue, which is cited in density bonus law as a reason for denying a project? So in other words, we've heard from several speakers concerns about health and safety related to the increasing congestion and traffic, and is that an issue that a project like this could be denied based upon?
So we have Abe Bandigan from traffic on the call, and then I'm not sure also if Roy may be able to contribute to that answer.
Yeah, and it might even be a city attorney issue, but I would like to have somebody speak to that so that there's some opportunity for the public to understand the issue and as it relates to the traffic congestion that this project will be contributing to.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor. I'll leave the portion of the question about the possibility of rejecting a project off of cumulative impact to Anna and Roy. But the projects that we did have the opportunity to request cumulative analysis, the previous projects on La Costa, all of them we did ask this. We evaluated the cumulative impact of those projects. And if there were mitigations that could be requested on one of them, I don't remember the exact project, but we requested either a two-way left turn lane or a modification of a striping to be included in the conditions of the project. So we do evaluate these type of cumulative impacts. But then again, if for this specific project being as far as I know, a by right project, if the cumulative impact needs to be evaluated, and if evaluated, if the potential impacts can be used as an avenue to reject a project, I'll leave that to Anna and Roy.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. As Abe indicated, we conducted a limited scope traffic analysis, and the analysis concluded that the project is consistent with the city's traffic policies related to level of service, and also does not exceed a certain threshold that would require certain mitigation. The specific finding for density bonus is that in order to deny a waiver, you have to make a finding that the project will result in an impact that cannot be mitigated. In this case, the traffic analysis did not identify a significant impact that cannot be mitigated. All the mitigations are included as part of project features in terms of the right-of-way improvements, including widening the road, putting in bike lanes, putting in the sidewalks. As the applicant indicated earlier, all those improvements would improve existing conditions. So based on the evidence on the record, we couldn't find any reason to deny the project based on any public health or safety concerns.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you. I just wanted to offer some preliminary comments. First, I just want to say, wow, thank you to all of the public who's given us such great insights and such great comments. And I think the public engagement has been wonderful, and I appreciate all the effort that people have gone into to give us their thoughts. I do want to note that, and then also say, I just feel like our role here is fairly specific. Our role today is to make a decision in the best interest of both what the law is and what the law says that we have the authority to do, and also to integrate the community's interests into our decision-making to make the best decision in the best interest of the community as well. Now, that's not an easy thing, but it helps a little bit in compartmentalizing some of the topics that have been brought up. For instance, the location of this site and the density allowed on this site are decisions that have been made already, and they're not before us today to discuss. So I wanted to make that statement. I do want to say that I've heard from the community too, and that I hear a lot of folks who really are concerned about housing. I was a member of our historical society for many years and on the board. And through that involvement, I learned a lot about the heritage and the legacy of the families in our community. And one of the things that really resonated with me is many of the folks who were also on our historical society and who still are, they said that their children can't afford to continue to live here in Encinitas. At the same time, I hear people say, we're losing our character, we're losing our culture. And I think sometimes there's a disconnect between the fact that that next generation cannot afford to live here and they're leaving. But if we could only provide affordable housing, then they might have the opportunity to stay. And I don't want to say it's only a next generation challenge. It's a challenge across all generations. But the folks that I've spoken to whose families go back for many generations have told me that. And I worry that we will lose our culture if we do not continue to provide housing options for people at all income levels, including the low and the very low. And I just wanted to put that out there as a lens that I look through. In response to what I've heard tonight, as far as the applicant, I feel as though he's listened to the community, and I'd want to make a point of saying that this is an applicant who had the right to conform with the by right, and yet he is interested in listening to the community and responding to what he's heard. I am impressed with that. I think that's an example of the kind of applicant that is a good fit for our community. That's my preliminary statement.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mosca.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to members of the public who have reached out to all of us. I've received numerous emails and have taken my time to call people, email people back on this issue. And I know that it's of great concern to some, and it's very sensitive. And so I've taken the time to reach out to folks and really tried to listen and answer questions as much as possible. So I'd also like to just echo the sentiments of Councilmember Lyons in terms of, these are core values of our city. If I could just get off topic for 1 second, these are core values of our city in terms of affordable housing. And so just because we had so many public speakers talk about this, and because Councilmember Lyons said this, we are absolutely committed to, bringing online more housing opportunities for people at all different parts of, all income levels in our city. And we welcome everyone. And I know that we're even having some issues with moderate level housing. And so these are things that this city council has shown an absolute solid commitment to addressing. And the same thing with infrastructure. My entire time on the city council has been about addressing infrastructure, making sure our roads are safer for all modes of transportation, for everybody who's walking, riding a bike, scooting, taking a bus, taking a train, riding a car. We'll continue to do that. And that will help as we have more of these projects that are coming online. So I just want to say that because it is a core value of ours. We don't want to just have these projects happen and then not do anything to improve the infrastructure around it. We want to continue to not only work with developers like Austin, but others, and make sure that we ourselves have a commitment to improving the infrastructure, which we do. Back to the appeal, on target with the appeal. As Councilmember Lyons said, our role here is very specific. It is to hear this appeal from the Planning Commission and determine whether or not the Planning Commission got it right. And really, there are two issues before us: the design review permit and the density bonus waiver. And those are really the two that, especially when you're talking about by right, that we're supposed to be focusing on. I'm confused as to what body of law the Planning Commission actually applied when looking at design review permit. So it says that in the staff report that they applied standards that were applicable citywide, but they're supposed to apply standards, design permit standards that were specific to this location. Can somebody clarify that? I haven't had an opportunity to talk to staff about this. It's in the staff report, but it's very confusing. What did they apply?
Sure. Thank you very much for that question. The Planning Commission applied the citywide design guidelines. They had referenced the environmental assessment, stating that they felt that it referenced Chapter 2308, and that meant that the city's design guidelines applied. However, the piece that staff is further describing is the language within taking you from Chapter 2308 to the city's design guidelines. We took it a step further and read the language regarding referencing when you're in a specific plan, having to go to that specific plan. But they felt that did not apply. And so those are the two positions. And that additional language did not apply for this housing element site.
So your position, the city's position, which is informed by legal counsel, has legal counsel weighed in on the position? I assume that legal counsel has weighed in on this position that the 101 North 101 design guidelines are the ones that actually apply?
That is correct.
All right. So so why weren't they informed? Why wasn't the Planning Commission informed of which rules apply?
They were informed. The staff report to Planning Commission provided the design recommendations within the specific plan. However, the decision was made that an interpretation of the environmental assessment took you only to the city's design guidelines. And then at the hearing, myself as well as the secretary did state our position that the specific plan applied.
So this may be my next question is for Roy or Leslie. In terms of the density bonus waiver, Roy, you said in your comments that no findings, that we would have to make findings of, to deny a waiver, we'd have to make findings that the impact could not be mitigated. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's one of the findings for a waiver.
So, Madam City Attorney, if no findings have been made at this point, how do we actually make findings if the Planning Commission hasn't made any findings? Are we allowed to make findings at this point, or am I just reviewing the findings that they have identified early on?
That's a good question. Thank you. Excuse me. See, under the density bonus law, an applicant is entitled to a waiver or reduction of any development standard that will have the effect of physically precluding the construction of the project at the density proposed. So they're entitled to it unless there are findings otherwise. So if you don't have findings before you, then they are entitled to the waivers.
And then unlike other situations where, I mean, there are a couple other by rights where we have actual evidence regarding waivers. I don't see any evidence in the record. Did the Planning Commission make any evidence? Was any evidence identified?
My understanding is that the Planning Commission did not address the requested waivers in their decision to deny the project. I think staff can probably confirm that.
Yes, thank you, Leslie. The Planning Commission considered the waivers, but did not take any actions regarding the waivers. Their action,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Their action was primarily on the design review permit. However, they did not take any actions on the density bonus, which is why there were no findings of denial of the waivers in their resolution.
So they never passed any judgment on the waivers.
There were comments made during their deliberation. My recollection is that they didn't have any concerns related to the waivers. Their primary concern was related to the design review and the design of the project.
That's correct. My understanding, excuse me to jump in, is that they denied the project and therefore didn't get to or make a finding or consider the waivers.
All right. Right. The other thing that I'm chronologically, how come? So they made the Planning Commission had given some feedback in terms of improving, from their point of view, improving the project, and now the project's improved. How come the improved project never went back to the Planning Commission for them to see? I mean, so they've never seen this improved project. Why is it? How come there wasn't another meeting for them to kind of see this? Maybe they would think that it worked for them, or, I mean, we don't even have any kind of record in terms of whether or not they think this would work for them or didn't work for them, or took into consideration what they were saying in terms of what they believe the design guidelines say.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Mosca. The changes, the revisions to the plans were made after the appeal was filed. So there is no procedure that outlines what happens when changes occur after an appeal is filed. Therefore, one of the recommendations or alternative actions for the council tonight is to defer the matter back to Planning Commission if that's the desire of the council, for them to review the revised plans.
All right. So one last question. So the revised designs that we see today, I do think that they, aside from the question of whether or not they comport with objective standards or on our code, it does appear, just from looking at it, that it fits better into the area, and it's a better design than the first design. So if this project moves forward, is that the project that we're actually approving, the second one with the butterfly kind of rooftop with the murals and the seating and the no more palm trees, and is that what we're approving?
So both options are on the table for the council to consider. So the council can decide which option to approve tonight, given that the Planning Commission acted on one option and then the changes were made subsequent to the Planning Commission action. So technically both options are on the table. It's up to the City Council which option to approve tonight, should you, approve the appeal.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hensy.
Thank you. So just a couple comments. I am inclined to move approval of this project tonight because I think that when I was watching these comments come through from various neighbors, I would try to pick up the thread with them and say, you know, you have a very willing developer here who wants to make this a high quality project. This is a developer who's not looking to sell this project once it's complete. They're going to stay here as management. And so that means that they're going to be invested in making sure that they don't take any shortcuts, that they actually complete a wonderful project. And I think that we have seen that in Austin's commitment to saying that whatever it is that the city council decides for the intersection at Vulcan and La Costa as the best way to manage traffic there, he will support it. You know, he could have said, we will choose the most low cost option, but he's committing to whatever option is in the best interest of our residents. There'll be 72 new households here if the project is built that will probably join this advocacy that we hear so much in favor of. This is definitely a corridor of our city that needs more investment and more infrastructure and better mobility networks. And I think there's the will on this council to see those through. And I will reiterate what Councilmember Line said, is that this council only has a limited purview over this project. The state has already decided that we don't get to go through the process of CEQA and understand cumulative effects of traffic unless they're so egregious that there's a public health risk associated. And instead, we have to look at this project and say, you know, if we don't approve this project, the public health risk to those who are unhoused or to those who will be displaced, or, you know, there are a whole series of cumulative effects that come when cities don't approve high quality projects in front of them that are going to provide high quality housing. And I think that's what this project does. As Austin noted, he could have completed a project that was 90 market rate units here, and instead he's going with fewer, and he could have only done that with 9 affordable units, but instead he's scaled back the market rate by 20% and he's increased the affordable by 33%. And I think that that's a big win for our community. I looked through, I won't say the name of this neighbor, but this one thread a neighbor included us on, where she started out with really hating the design of this project. And she never threw up her hands. She never said, oh, I'm not able to come to a conclusion with this developer. I'm not going to work with him anymore. She continued to engage to the point where today she sent us an email with 12 things that had been improved since the time she started this engagement. And these were things that I really don't think that he had to do, but yet he still did those things. So the project that's before us tonight is one that I can be happy to support. The project that was before the Planning Commission, there were some design flaws, but I think that it's come a long way. And I love a lot about it. And I think that when we're in this role, you have to really weigh what it is in front of you at this moment. Yes, we're going to have traffic impacts, but yes, we will also have impacts to displacement and increasing homelessness if we don't say yes to this project. So I will move approval at the appropriate time. I'm sure the mayor still wants to make comments, and I see Councilmember Kranz's hand up, but I'm happy with the way that this has ended up.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to jump in here after round 1 before going to round 2, and I'll take that as a motion, and I'll second your motion. I think we should approve this project, and I appreciate the people who called in, the variety of opinions that we received, and people sharing their personal stories. It's really great to hear all of the different perspectives. We've received a lot of commentary over email as well. So I just really want to thank the engaged community that we have here in Encinitas. So I think we should approve this project, the one presented today. To me, it's clear that there is no violation of any of the applicable design review guidelines. And we had staff Roy just said that it is consistent with traffic policies based on the analysis that they did, and that traffic conditions will actually be improved. And there was a great visual, this was the first time I've seen that, when it was presented just now. But yeah, sidewalks, bike lane, it does look somewhat derelict right now, and it will be just much improved by having this project improve the right of way on the public street, as well as provide the needed housing. So, I'm grateful for the many improvements that we see in this project from the time that it came through the Planning Commission. So, as was pointed out, but I just want to highlight, it could have been 90 units and it's 72. It could have had 9 affordable units and it has 12. There were a lot of improved design features, like the addition of wood, stone, murals, art, the roof lines slanted and changed, 72 bike lockers. These are all significant, and the project, the entire plant palette being changed, canopy trees. So, it's really important, I think, that we recognize what is a benefit of this project, and also to address that question of whether this is the right spot for housing in the city, given the entirety of the city. It really, you have to look at the reality of us making decisions about housing element sites. There were 15 sites chosen. We were under a court order to choose them. We had to have developer interest so that this sites would be developed in the planning period. And that is what's happening here with this site. And so those decisions were made for a whole bunch of other reasons, but the reality is they were made. So this is a by right site. And I think it's important to go back to the staff report that says that by right projects may be subject to design review. And that's a review of all rental multifamily residential housing projects. And it's limited to compliance with objective, quantifiable written development standards. So, that is based, in my mind, there's just no question that this does not have any justification for denial. So I think it's a good project. I'm excited to see the improvements to the right of way as well. And I'm grateful to the applicant for all the outreach that he's done, because I have had the same experience of suggesting that he reach out to certain people or people being unhappy with the project, and he's met with everybody who's willing to meet with him from what I can see. So I appreciate that approach to our community and trying to really understand, what does it Leucadia funky mean, and what is it when people say they want to keep it funky, or they want this to seem like it fits in. I do think that what you provided this round is much, much more Leucadia and much more Encinitas than the original design, and I appreciate the efforts to make that happen. So and I think it's important just to note that we do need more housing in order to keep our residents able to live in the city. People at public comment said it, but it's also it's state law. We don't want crazy overdevelopment, but we need modest, moderate, ongoing increases to housing at all levels, especially rental housing. And this provides a really needed slice of housing in our city. So, I understand the concern about ruining our city and having too much traffic. And I really think that this project, it will not create those, that picture. I think it will create additional opportunities for people, and that it won't have a big negative effect on health and safety in our community. I know there are different opinions on that. I heard it at public comment and also in many emails, but I do think it's important to be objective about this project, and so I'm happy to support it tonight. So I will now go back to Deputy Mayor Kranz, but I think, and I'll close the public hearing, because before we have a vote, we have to close the public hearing. So that's now closed.
Thank you. And I did want to follow up. There were a couple of comments earlier that struck a chord. Councilmember Mosca talked about core values and the idea of construction of more affordable housing. There's no question that a big part of our community is very interested in seeing that happen. I think that the reality, however, is that it's a two-edged sword, so to speak, and that some of the inevitable impacts of additional density and more people in our community is going to create some challenges. And those challenges are, it's incumbent upon this city council to address those. And so, it's my hope that with this project and some of the others that, the western parcel is likely to be, in construction fairly soon, and they had some mitigation and some fair share stuff that they did. So our opportunity to make improvements to La Costa Avenue corridor are now and yesterday. So we need to stay focused on that so that these issues that so many people have brought up can be addressed and addressed in a way that will make everybody proud. The other thing that Mayor Blakespear, you alluded to, I think it's important to acknowledge that the process of coming up with the sites for the housing element, both the 5th cycle, which was indeed adopted under court order, and now the 6th cycle, it was a very difficult process politically, and that there were a whole bunch of compromises that came from that. But there is no doubt that throughout that process, we were in the position of picking winners and losers. And in this particular case, I happen to know the Madison family who owned those greenhouses and owned that parcel. And when they sold it in the early aughts, there was a map for 5 homes. And the purchaser of that property, clearly having gone from a map that allowed for 5 homes to now 72, made out pretty well. And the impacts are fairly significant on the adjacent property owners. And so I just think it's really important that we acknowledge that they are indeed going to have their lives impacted by this project. And, it's unfortunate, but there indeed has to be, we had to find sites, and this site ended up on the list. And there was, like I said, a lot of compromise that was part of that. So again, I say that it is incumbent upon us as a city council to continue to focus on addressing the issues related to traffic congestion, the lack of what you would call complete street facilities that are on Vulcan and La Costa Avenue. So I will certainly be, like I did earlier tonight, advocating strongly that we address the issues in a long-term way as opposed to what we're doing now, which is interim this and interim that. So I appreciate the work that Mr. Wormers did to address the concerns that were raised by the Planning Commission. I also think it's important to acknowledge that while we are getting deed-restricted affordable housing, there is a fairly decent chance down the road that the market rate units could also be affordable. And we could make that a certainty if we were to come up with a voucher program that was that worked with these multifamily project owners to do everything that we can to provide affordable housing for people in our community. So again, it's my hope that this council will stay focused on trying to develop programs that would provide for that. So again, I thank all the folks that put in a lot of time to address issues. I think that it's important to acknowledge to Nicola Ranson that the reality is that through the housing element process, we put in place laws that have been followed. And ultimately, that is what each of us council members have looked at here tonight. And I think this vote is going to basically indicate whether it is our opinion that the law has been followed. So I understand the impacts, but ultimately, I think that the law has been followed.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Lyons.
I just would like to support what Deputy Mayor Kranz just said about the continuing to look at the traffic improvements along Vulcan and La Costa, and I think others have mentioned it as well. There were a few things said tonight, but also some information we've talked about in the past that implies to me that we still have some opportunities to evaluate in a more rigorous way what the improvements should be in this section of the city regarding traffic circulation. And so I'll be interested in continuing to talk to my colleagues and to see if others are interested in directing our staff to continue to evaluate that so that we can continue to promote the safe conveyance of traffic, all modes in this area. Definitely am in support of that. And the other comment is just a housekeeping comment, and maybe our city attorney could tell me, but does our motion need to specifically grant the waivers or somehow mention the waivers?
No, I believe what you can just do is the recommended action, approve the appeal and adopt the resolution. I believe the resolution has a requisite language in it, so it can be as noted in your staff report.
Awesome. Thank you for the clarification.
I guess it should note that just based on Roy's comments, it should note that it's the revised drawings, the revised design.
Okay, I can amend the motion to set aside Planning Commission denial and approve the project that's been revised before us tonight with the conditions recommended by staff.
Okay, I second that. Let's go ahead and vote.
Okay, Councilmember Hensy,
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosca,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Crayons,
Yes.
and Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Well, thank you. We are nearly done, but we still have one more item with our, let me get back to this here. With our report on streetscape. Let's see.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. My name is Lillian Doherty, and I am the Director of Infrastructure and Sustainability Department for the City of Encinitas. This evening, we are pleased to present an update of two key priority transformative projects that are under construction: the Leucadia Streetscape and El Portal Undercrossing projects. Together, these two projects improve connectivity and mobility throughout a key corridor in our community, as well as include features that restore the historic tree canopy and reduce the risk of flooding. Next slide, please. On this slide, we have provided a roadmap for our presentation this evening. As noted, I am joined by our hardworking team comprised of city, SANDAG, and consultant members. Presenting with me tonight are Jill Bankston, acting city engineer and project engineer for the Leucadia Streetscape project, Ali DeVoe, project engineer and project manager for the El Portal Undercrossing project with SANDAG, Alex Welling, public communications officer for SANDAG, and Suzanne Bankhead for the City of Encinitas from JPW Communications. At this time, I will turn the presentation over to Ali to share the incredible progress
Can I ask you a quick question?
that we've made on the El Portal Undercrossing project construction. Ali?
Thank you, Lillian. Good evening, council members. My name is Ali DeVoe. I am a senior engineer with SANDAG and the project manager for the El Portal Undercrossing project. Today, I'll provide a brief update on the project's progress of construction and where we're heading in the next few months. So this slide just shows you the project area, which is primarily in the railroad right-of-way, adjacent to Vulcan Avenue and Highway 101 between Union Street and Halcyon Road, right next to Paul Ecke Elementary School. Next slide, please. So to date, our construction crews have been busy out there working since last year. We have completed 3 absolute work windows earlier this year in which we built the undercrossing bridge structure, which was a major milestone for the project. Since then, we've been working on the retaining wall construction. We've installed temporary shoring for the retaining walls, excavated for those retaining walls, and began pouring the fall foundations and the accent walls. And actually, this week we had our first full retaining wall pour on one side of the project. On the next slide, this is a time-lapse video of those 3 absolute work windows earlier this year. So at the forefront here, you'll see the first 2 AWWs that were used to construct the piles, which are the foundation for the undercrossing. So the track was out of service. We excavated down and installed 9 piles in the first absolute work window and then 9 piles in the second. And the track was put into service back in between those timeframes. Just let that run through. This is the start of the second AWW. And you can see those large steel beams that are dropped in the ground, and then the holes are filled in with concrete to form the foundation. And this is the third AWW, which is the final one we utilized for the undercrossing structure. And this is where the precast bridge girders were set in place. So this is really where it transforms into a full bridge structure. The precast elements were placed on top of the piles and welded into place. And after that, we put the track back into service, and we now have a complete bridge structure that we can start building under and around. So upcoming activities, we are going to continue to work on building those retaining walls, which is a really major part of the project. It forms all the pathways to and from the undercrossing. So we have 2 absolute work windows in October that we're preparing for, October 2nd and 3rd and 16th and 17th. We do expect overnight and weekend work, and the primary objective will be to remove the temporary shoring that was put in place to construct the retaining walls, which you can see out there now. It's fairly large steel beams and plates. There will be a rail closure. This is a planned rail closure by NCTD well in advance, and our team will be doing significant outreach in advance of this work. And with that, I will turn it over to Jill Bankston to give an update on streetscape. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Jill Bankston. I'm the acting city engineer and Leucadia Streetscape project manager with the City of Encinitas. And tonight I'll give you an update on a couple projects along the streetscape corridor. And we'll start out with the project that's currently under construction. Next slide, please. But first, we'll start with a brief overview of the Leucadia Streetscape corridor. So this graphic shows the entire stretch of Leucadia Streetscape from A Street in the south up to La Costa in the north. This map is broken into 3 segments, A, B, and C, to differentiate the different work zones. The triangles to the right show the various benefits that the Leucadia Streetscape project will bring to the corridor, including a dedicated bike lane, additional parking, roundabouts to improve traffic flow, and improving our tree canopy. Next slide, please. So our first streetscape project is in construction. Now it's at the north end of segment A between Marchetta and Basil. And this project includes a roundabout at El Portal, connections to the El Portal undercrossing that Ali just talked about, reduction in vehicle lanes from 2 lanes in both directions to 1 lane in each direction, new separate bike lanes, wider sidewalks, 5 new crosswalks with pedestrian flashers, improved street lighting, nearly 100 new trees, stormwater treatment through biofiltration and dispersion, and better access for businesses and restaurants. Construction on this first phase of streetscape began in January this year, and it's anticipated to be completed this coming spring. Next slide, please. So our construction project is moving along well. Here's a photo of one of our new parking pods. We have 3 northerly parking pods that have been completed to date and are being used by the community. The parking pods are located from Basil to Daphne. There's a second one surrounding Jason Street, and then the final one extends from Jupiter to Avocado. 2 more parking pods are going to be constructed between Marchetta and Basil. And these pods are creating new parallel parking areas that are formalized within NCTD right-of-way, along with crosswalks to safely get consumers and patrons and all sorts of folks from the east side of the 101 to the west side of the 101. Next slide, please. This photo on the left shows completed work between Marchetta and El Portal with new pavement and a new driveway for a future parking pod. And about a week ago, we did the most recent traffic shift that you can see in the photo on the right, where we put the northbound traffic onto our new pavement. The picture on the right shows the orange delineators and signs that shifted the northbound traffic to the east side and closed off the median between Marchetta and Basil. And that's where we have a new work zone that's going to remove the existing median and construct new medians along with new irrigation and landscaping. Next slide, please. We're also continuing construction on our 3,000 linear feet of new storm drain pipe that extends from El Portal to Encinitas Boulevard to help alleviate flooding between Marchetta and El Portal. The storm drain is about 20 feet deep, and we've constructed about 2,000 linear feet of pipe to date. Work on the last stretch of the storm drain down by Encinitas Boulevard will begin next month and will require a new, smaller K-rail traffic shift down by Encinitas Boulevard, and we'll pull out all the existing K-rail that's in place today. Next slide, please. Can you pause the video a second? Thank you. So early this year, the city was approached by Sean Workman, a local resident and co-founder of Pseudonym, a visual media company. Sean volunteered to collect drone footage of our construction zone to help capture the transformation of the 101 corridor. It's been a great service to the city, and I'm pleased to share the first video that we have of drone footage along our 101 corridor. So, okay, you can push play. So you can see the K-rail there with the work zone for the pipe on the right. You'll also entering the new pavement area here between up to El Portal. El Portal is right there on the right. Next, we hit our first parking pod and then a crosswalk at Basil. Now we're into our second parking pod with a crosswalk at Daphne. And now we're on up to Leucadia Streetscape. It goes by pretty fast. We can control the speed. We can share slower versions, or we can share this link with the rest of the city council members if you'd like to kind of pick through it frame by frame. Next slide, please. So our most challenging phase is going to begin in October when we remove the old sidewalk in front of the businesses on the west side of the road and build new curb, gutter, sidewalk, landscaping, seating, and lighting. The city's meeting with individual property owners and conducting a survey to understand their needs and help reduce the impact to their businesses as much as we can. We've created 3 maps to share with business owners and proprietors that give pretty explicit detail on the upcoming work that will happen in front of their businesses. This is the first map at the south end of the project. It extends from Marchetta up to just south of El Portal. Next slide, please. This graphic shows the additional detail surrounding the El Portal intersection up to North Court. Again, it has more detail. It shows sidewalks, landscaping, parking, crosswalks. It also includes the El Portal roundabout and the undercrossing work zone to the east side of the 101. Next slide, please. And then this is the final graphic. It shows the construction details for the north section of the project between North Court and Basil. And again, these graphics will be used to communicate the project elements to our Leucadia businesses and help them understand the project work in their area. Now I'll turn the presentation over to Alex Welling, who's going to provide additional detail on project communication.
Thanks, Jill, and good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. So Sandag and the city have worked together to develop a comprehensive communications and outreach plan to ensure the community knows about the projects, construction timelines, and how to stay informed throughout construction. So the goals of our communication plan include the following: continuing to build goodwill and trust within the community, providing timely, consistent, and accurate communications throughout the construction process, making sure that we're educating all of our different audiences about the different projects, engaging in creative ways given the public health orders due to COVID-19 and the ever-evolving situation there, and making sure that we're coordinating all communications about both projects jointly. And that last goal, I believe, is probably one of the most important ones, because we recognize that the public won't be able to tell where El Portal begins and Streetscape ends during construction. We understand that they'll see it as one project, so we're approaching our communications that way. This is also an opportunity for Sandag and the city to build on their strong partnerships and collaboration on past projects here in the Encinitas community, many of which are still ongoing along the I-5 corridor. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Suzanne Bankhead, who will kind of talk a little bit more about our communications efforts and results.
Thank you, Alex.
As we presented to you earlier this year, we've been using what we like to call our spreadsheet on steroids to track data related to public inquiries received to date on both Streetscape and El Portal projects. We've created a dashboard that quickly illustrates those metrics for us. This is a look at our public inquiry dashboard, which shows the types of inquiries received, whether there were questions and comments related to a specific topic like noise, safety, scope of the project, etc. We also are tracking the sentiment of every inquiry we get, whether they were positive, negative, or neutral, and then whether the inquiry was about one project or both projects. So I'd like to point your attention to the bar graph on the right. That's an illustration of the sentiment of the inquiries that we've received to date. And we're very proud to say that so far we've had a mostly neutral set of questions and comments that have come through on both projects. For a construction effort this large and this significant to the community, we feel that this is a tremendous achievement. And so as we move into future segments of the Streetscape project, we'll certainly strive to maintain this neutral sentiment and then certainly reaffirm our commitment to consistent communications about the project. And not only are we tracking questions and comments that come in about the projects to our dedicated phone line and email, but we're also tracking all contacts with the public throughout project construction. This is a quick look at our public involvement dashboard, which shows a quick accounting of how many outreach contacts we've made so far and the type of contact, whether it was by phone, by email, by meeting or presentation. And then this is just a reminder of all the ways that the community can reach out to us with questions, comments during construction. And as Jill mentioned, we'll be doing a more targeted outreach for Streetscape this fall to businesses as we shift to the west side of 101. And at this time, I'll turn back the presentation to Jill.
Thanks, Suzanne. So our efforts to reach out to the community, respond to their questions, and provide helpful and easy to understand graphics like this have seemed to really pay off. Our construction can be disruptive, but our goal is to make the overall construction experience for people who travel through the corridor or the adjacent businesses positive. Our commitment to clear and honest communications will ensure that our residents and businesses feel supported and heard throughout the entire construction process. Our goal of the team is to continue this commitment during construction and throughout the latter phases of the Streetscape project. Next slide, please. This all leads us up to the question at hand. What is our plan to deliver improvements in segments B and C at the north end of Leucadia? Next slide, please. We're excited to move forward this fiscal year with the next iterations of the Streetscape project, which were approved at City Council as part of this year's budget. So in addition to segment A, which is currently under construction at the north end, we have two new concurrent Streetscape projects that we're working to deliver for our residents. At the top of this graphic in orange is the current construction project between Marchetta and Basil. Started in January of this year, and we're looking to wrap it up in late spring 2022. The blue bar on this graph is the new safety and mobility enhancements project in segments B and C, which extends from Basil to La Costa. So design and permitting are underway, and construction is expected to begin in late spring and be completed in late fall 2022. That's the restriping project. At the bottom, we have in teal, we have the next Streetscape project, which is the segment C west side focused project from Jupiter to Moorgate. This project is also in design. It's a more complicated project that has a few more steps that we need to get through, and we expect to be able to start construction on this segment in early 2023. And the next few slides will provide a little bit more detail about each of these projects. Next slide, please. So the current Streetscape project that we just talked about builds improvements at the south end of the corridor up to Basil. The future Streetscape project that we have in segment C will be at the north end of the corridor between Jupiter and Moorgate. And both of those projects are bookend projects that will create wider sidewalks, new landscaping, new pedestrian crossings, and one vehicle lane in each direction along with a bike lane. So this strategy leaves a gap between Basil and Jupiter that will continue to have existing conditions with 2 lanes in each direction and bike sharrows. So to resolve this gap and provide a more consistent lane configuration through the corridor, this safety and mobility enhancements project is going to restripe the 101 from Basil to La Costa. So this project is an opportunity to restripe the existing roadway now in a cost-effective manner. It'll implement the ultimate Streetscape road diet and dedicated bike lane. It requires trimming some of the existing medians, adjusting some of the median irrigation, removal of some landscaping. But the striping improvements in segment B will remain in place until a subsequent Leucadia Streetscape segment B project is funded. And then the improvements that it will create in segment C will stay in place until that Leucadia Streetscape segment C project moves forward. Next slide, please. So this slide lays out some of the key milestones for that safety and mobility striping project. This schedule assumes we have no hiccups and we get a favorable determination from the Coastal Commission. Design and permitting are already underway, as I mentioned. The city received our first design submittal a couple weeks ago. It's been routed for review and comment. We've had our first project development team meeting to talk through the plan comments and make sure we're sharing those with our designer. We've also engaged Coastal Commission staff to explain the project and help them reach a decision on what kind of approval they need to provide to get this project to move forward. So this schedule anticipates Coastal Commission decision in November, and then bringing the final bid package back to council in January for approval, and then a construction start in May 2022. Next slide, please. This graphic shows the next Leucadia Streetscape segment, which is up in C. It was approved by City Council in May and June 2021. This is the West Focus Streetscape project. It'll include 3 roundabouts, one at Jupiter, one at Grandview, one at Bishopsgate. It'll provide the wider new sidewalks on the west side, new pavement for the southbound lanes, lighting, and then landscaping and irrigation for the west side trees. Next slide, please. And then these are the key milestones for that larger project. The schedule assumes no hiccups, that we quickly can resolve our outstanding right-of-way issues. We get a favorable determination from Coastal Commission, and we obtain swift I-bank loan approval. As I mentioned, design and permitting are underway. Our consultant is working on that first design submittal for us, and we've engaged Coastal Commission staff to explain the project. So this schedule anticipates submitting the Coastal Commission application in November, getting 90% plans in December, getting a Coastal Commission decision in February 2022, bringing the final bid package to council in May of 2022, awarding a construction contract in July of 22, submitting the contractor's permit documents to NCTD and Coastal in September of 22, and then breaking ground, starting construction in November of 2022. Next slide, please. And then finally, I just wanted to share that we're preparing for a modest mid-construction celebration on Thursday, September 30th at 10 a.m. Due to the current COVID situation, it's not going to be an invitation to the broader public, but we're planning a small ceremony and we're going to videotape it, and we'll be able to share that across our social media channels. Next slide. Thank you very much for your time. And now we're available to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you. That was a great presentation. All parts of it were really interesting, and I'm thrilled with the team who's working on this. And I'm so glad that we are so methodically communicating with the public and tracking it, and that we're unified between Sandag and the city. So yeah, congratulations on doing a really good job there. I want you to know that I really feel that when I see this presentation, and I'm glad that we're doing a presentation because you're doing so much great work, and it's really important that the council see it and also that the public see it. I see my colleagues have their hands up, but since I'm talking, I'll just ask my one question, which is, I'm surprised when I saw the aerial footage and then the open parking pod. I'm surprised at how wide the parking pod actually is. It's like almost as wide as the street, it looks like. And I noticed in one of the graphics that followed it, you referred to a new DG pathway. And when I looked at it, I thought, I bet people are going to walk the corridor in the parking pod. And so can you just address that part? Was that an additive alternative, or did we just kind of make that work? Or what was it that, I'm really happy to see that because it seemed like such an oversight to me that we don't have a walking path. And I know I've said this before, but I'm just happy that that's actually appearing now. So can you just address that a little bit?
Sure. If you want to flip to slide 10 in the slide deck, that's the picture that we've got there. So it's hard to distinguish, but what you'll see there, it is rather wide. There's the parallel parking area, there's a drive aisle, and that's all gravel. But adjacent to that is a DG walking path. So there is the very eastern portion is meant to be just for walkers. And we recognize that it's hard to visually distinguish that. So we're going to be putting out some separators to keep the drivers out of the DG path and provide a little bit more comfort for the people walking through those parking pods.
And how wide is that DG path?
It varies. It depends on the right of way that we have available, but it varies between, I think, 5 and 8 feet, 10 feet in a couple places, but mostly 5 to 8 feet.
Okay. Okay. Great. I'm thrilled by that. I just want to ask before I call on my colleagues, do we have public speakers on this item?
No, we do not.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Krantz.
Thank you. Yes, wonderful presentation, and I thank the gentleman with the drone footage. It's kind of cool to see. I look forward to. How often is he flying that?
He's flying it weekly.
Weekly. So at some point there'll be some sort of mashup to show the progression by segment or something. Is that correct?
That's the plan. Correct.
Okay, can you go to the slide that has like the Panikin? I think it's the third segment or any of those segments. Leucadia Glass segment, El Portal is good too.
Slide 15 or so.
I didn't take the number. So in watching this construction, geeking out at all this stuff, the thing that I'm struck by is the green areas where essentially they are removing asphalt and concrete and going down to soil that hasn't seen the light of day for 100 and some years. So all of that green area, I assume, matches these plans that I have. This planting, I have these plans that I got from staff a while ago, and it's got all these plantings, and I just did the math on it, and it shows that in those green areas, in those medians, there will be 99 new trees planted in the medians. Does that sound about right?
We have about 99 trees planted between the medians and then the west side of the road, but there are lots of trees. Probably 3/4 of them are in the median.
I see. And then there were 31 trees that are remaining. So those, I assume, are, given that this stretch originally was nothing but pavement from side to side, this is an area where all of the trees were pretty much in the railroad corridor. There are some on the west side, but most are along the edge of the railroad corridor. Is that correct?
Correct.
So that's a huge impact, and I'm really excited to see the work continue. I know they've been pouring curbs for those medians. I did stop by and talk to the owner of the Panikin, and he has been pleased with the construction. I don't know about the other business owners, but my hope is that they've been kept informed and have had any issues that were possible to address. They've had them addressed. And so I appreciate the communications efforts and the work that's being done on this, especially the work that is, the construction is currently underway. When this is finished, it's going to be absolutely tremendous. I also want to acknowledge my colleague, Councilmember Hinsey, who has been bird dogging the DG path like a basset hound here. And so actually, I don't know if basset hounds do birds, but German short-haired pointer, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Great job. It is really going to be very useful for the public. Keeps them away from automobile traffic, bike traffic. It's getting used a lot. I think our biggest problem is that there are segments of the DG trail on the northern end that don't connect. So, I know that we're all sensitive to the impacts of our limited resources, but seeing this project finished is really going to be tremendous. Now to another kind of pressing issue. the video that you showed of the El Portal reminds me of the challenge that we have with the Vulcan corridor from Leucadia Boulevard south to Encinitas Boulevard. And it is really important that somehow, some way, and I know that the city manager really is not too stoked about any talk of additional projects and additional workload, but we're going to finish the El Portal undercrossing, and we're going to have a totally inadequate pathway on the east side of the railroad corridor, the west side of Vulcan. It's got that little curb there, which has been removed in some places. It's currently, the construction zone is being used for parking for the farmers market on Sundays. And, you know, there's going to be a need to address the current configuration of the walking area to the west of Vulcan. So I'm not sure when the right time to address that, whether it's to take that whole curb out and use wheel stops like we have north of Leucadia Boulevard. But I'm looking forward to getting that conversation started, because we're going to have a crown jewel of an undercrossing, and we're going to have kind of a ugly, incomplete bit of infrastructure, both north and south of that on the west side of Vulcan. So looking forward to that conversation. Thanks again to staff. I know we are, pretty impatient people, so putting up with that and keeping this thing moving is very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Enzi.
Thank you. Yes, great presentation, and really excited to see the progress. And I hear it every morning, and it's even the construction noise is exhilarating for me. So I want to say that Sean, who's doing this video for us, his wife is a teacher at Pawlecki Central, and they have 2 kids, and they're constantly on the move, biking and walking everywhere. And they're so excited about this project, and they're just like the poster family for why it's so essential. And so just a few smaller points here, and then a bigger question. So we installed a temporary crosswalk on Halcyon to make sure kids can get to and from Pawlecki with the safe crossing there. And I'm really hoping that we can keep that one permanent. And then in the next phase of raised crosswalks that we do on Vulcan, that perhaps we can consider that one as well, because I think it's been well received. And then, as Councilmember or Deputy Mayor Krantz mentioned, to put back that curb as quickly as construction's done is really important, so that it doesn't turn into parking and we don't find ourselves in that situation. So those 2 points. And then I am concerned about the impacts to these businesses, because I know that even everything's gone so well so far, and they continue to rave about the communication. And I'm really thankful to Suzanne and her team, because you guys go above and beyond to make sure everybody's aware and can reach you if they do have a problem. And so I hope that we can either put forward, modest resources from the city, or support L101 in an idea that they come up with to support these businesses when they don't have sidewalks out in front, to make sure that they can still get business flow and foot traffic to their businesses, because I think that will be really important in keeping the momentum going for future phases. Really important that we don't lose any of these small businesses in the time that construction's going on. So I hope my colleagues will support that, and hopefully we can come up with some great ideas like cash mobs or videos that might feature these business owners, or some buy local program in that time. And then the big question that I have is, seeing this big stormwater pipe going in, knowing that it's going to reach all the way to Encinitas Boulevard, will you remind me if we have funded the multi-use path that would, and I think it would go over this storm pipe. Maybe the stormwater pipe goes under the highway itself, but when the time comes, do we have the funding as part of this segment to complete that multi-use path all the way to Encinitas Boulevard? Because I think that is a cute, safe route to school.
So with this project, we're going to restore there's an old AC pathway that was out there. So we're looking to restore that. We've asked our contractor for a cost to make it DG instead of asphalt concrete through that stretch there. But we are looking to maintain that connectivity. There's not a path in front of Chico and Encinitas surfboards. That's a little gap where there's parking, but there is parking. You can walk in front of that parking area, and then you hit that AC path, and that AC path will connect to the DG path behind our new parking pods.
Okay, that's great. That's excellent. Last thing, let me remember what it is.
Councilmember, if I can address the question about Halcyon while you're thinking of your additional comment. I just wanted to share that, we did anticipate that you might ask, and we've already coordinated with traffic, and we've talked about it with Principal Seacrest, and we feel that it would not be a problem to allow that Halcyon crossing to remain.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that great news. Well, I can't remember my other question, so I'll have to circle back with you about that, but this is great progress.
Okay. Well, this is really great. And I just want to emphasize that Sandag can put on a good press conference. They're really good at that. So we should utilize their expertise in having our press conference. Like, they can reach out, they make events really official, and they look professional. And, we shouldn't have some like totally rinky-dink little press conference because we're worried about COVID. Because, I'm going to press conferences all the time with Sandag, and they're outside and people stand socially distanced. You can wear a mask. So, let's not let that kind of overwhelm our sense of what we're doing here. Yes, City Manager.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I just need to say that the city manager loves new projects and programs. We just need to make sure that we plan and budget for them. So I wanted Deputy Mayor Kranz to know that we did take notes, and we know that there are other things that we need to do, and we will be bringing all good new things forward in the coming months, especially as we hear more about the infrastructure bill.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, this is very exciting. This is a great project in our city. I'm so thrilled to see it coming alive before our eyes and all the work that's being put in. So thank you again for the dedication. And it's just so exciting. We're going to offer this increased amenities, increased improvements in our public space. It's just fantastic. So, all right, well, that's great. I think we're done with this item. Thank you, everybody. And is there any report from the council members from AB 1234 that anyone wants to share? Or city manager report, or city attorney report, or city clerk report?
I would like to share the joy that I felt riding that trolley down in San Diego with you the other day. A Sandag project that has been 2 decades in the making. Board Chair Lakespear had a great press conference with Alex Padilla and Senator Alex Padilla and Supervisor Fletcher and Mayor Gloria and the mayor of Tijuana, I can't recall her name, who gave a great speech talking about the connectivity that this extension will provide for the folks who live in Mexico and work in the United States and vice versa. So really exciting. Revenue service begins in November, and it's not something that I think very many Encinitas folks will necessarily be riding, but for all of the benefits regarding climate action and other things, mode shift, et cetera, the work that Sandag did on that and your talk at the press conference the other day, all very important. So thanks for your leadership on that.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that, Councilmember Kranz. It's really exciting. I'll just share that, we don't open new transit in this county all that much. And this is 11 miles, 9 stops, and it allows you to go with 1 seat, 1 ticket from the border all the way to UCSD and all the medical facilities in that area and all the jobs at UTC. And, there's veterans, healthcare, and all sorts of different things that you used to only be able to drive to. And now there's really good transit that's just right to the doorstep. And it's been, of course, many years in the planning and execution, but it's on time and on budget, which is really impressive. And it's built by Sandag, but will be operated by MTS, which is the transit agency like NCTD that operates in the southern part of our county, but is integrating more and more with NCTD. So it is a really exciting time to be right on the doorstep of opening that new transit in this county.
It's a $2 billion $2 billion project, and $1 billion of the monies came from the federal government. So the work that Sandag does to bring these sort of projects to fruition is pretty important for our region.
Yes, and that's a great point. I'm glad you said that, because projects don't get $1 billion very much. Like, they get a couple $100,000 or a couple million, but $1 billion to get that in our region, that's like unheard of for one project to get that. And we did in this county. Sandag got that money. So, that's the kind of thing that we need to see if we're going to be building more and more transit, which we are planning to as part of our regional plan. So, and it's also, of course, for obvious climate reasons and congestion and jobs and everything. It's great. So thank you for highlighting that, Councilmember Kranz. Okay, so any other, Kathy Hollywood popped up? Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to remind you that we do have an unscheduled vacancy on the Traffic and Public Safety Commission. Applications are due on September 9th at 5 o'clock. And this is an at-large position, so the only requirement is that you are a resident and a registered voter of the city of Encinitas.
Good, thank you. Yes, please continue to say that at every meeting until it's filled. Okay, anything else, City Attorney? I see you. No? Okay, well, we are adjourned, everybody. Thank you very much. We'll see you at the next meeting.